Whether you're a Class 5 rafter or just looking for a couple of laughs, these two have you covered. Welcome to Aaron and Zach's Better Than Mediocre Rafting Show.
Well, happy Friday, and welcome to Aaron and Zach's Entitled and Naive Rafting Show. We have a new name for the show. Somebody left us a comment last week, and actually said we were douchey, entitled, and naive. I looked up douchey and realized it's kind of a bad word, so we're not going to use it in our title. But we're now just the Entitled and Naive Rafting Show. So welcome. We brought Dougie on to hopefully so we're a little less entitled and a little less naive this week. So thanks for being here, Dougie.
Okay, do you want to talk more about that? I'm curious.
We were talking about the Grand Canyon. We were just having like a fun conversation. Aaron mentioned that the flows might be low, and we were just having this like, what if the flows were low conversation. And I don't think some people like that because they thought we were advocating for lower flows. And it was more just us chatting about what it would be like and what that would mean and how that like different river users would use the river if it was lower. And they felt that we were being douchey, entitled, and naive. So I thought that was a good name for the show. Yeah, Nate loves the title too because it's pretty spot on. I mean, we're very entitled.
How low of flows were you talking about?
Aaron, were you saying like it might get down to 1,000 or like were you saying that it will or just theoretically?
No, we're just discussing that there's some concerns about flows in the Grand Canyon, and I was saying it's kind of exciting to think about the prospect of the Grand Canyon running at a different flow, like because it as pre-dam the river used to come up really high and drop really low, like we see in Cataract Canyon, and it would be interesting to see it more at those low flows and get to go run it at 1,000, 2,000 CFS. I thought that would be really fun. I think that would be a neat adventure. And that was the basis of the conversation. Pretty much was that, wasn't it, Zach?
Yeah, but I think that they thought we were advocating for lower flows. I mean, we probably get misunderstood. But Dougie, my point was that, like, the kind of nice thing about the Grand Canyon is that
You there?
Oh yeah, I'm here now. I see. I don't know what's going on. But the idea of low, God, our internet's low today too, or not doing too well today. But when the river's lower, that could keep people off the Grand Canyon, and that's something that's nice about the Grand Canyon and the Rogue and the Middle Fork, and a lot of rivers that like being moderated flows and having a flow regime that happens over the summer when it's warm is good because it allows more diverse people to get on the river. Not diverse like diversity we're thinking of right now, but just like different people, not just like a bunch of Patagonia wearing people who argue about Orlocks versus pins and clips.
Okay.
Oh, that was an entitled and naive thing to say too. I gotta watch it. Anyway, that's our new show name. So welcome to the show, guys. I got a couple things to start off today. What do you guys think about, make myself big, about channel locks? Do you feel like they're useful, must-haves, kind of dumb? What do you think about as like a guide or boater carrying channel locks with you? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool.
I don't know what to say about that. It's channel locks? Are we really talking about channel locks?
Yeah, well, because I got a piece of gear coming up. I want to show you, but let's start with channel locks. Remember back in the day, like sometimes I'll have channel locks with me all the time because I'll use them to like tighten up my pins and clips. I'll use them to pull a Dutch oven off of a fire. You know, like that, Aaron? When I started working for Echo, every guide had to have a pair of channel locks.
Yeah, but you didn't wear them on your hip in a little thing, did you? You did not do that.
I never did, but I know guides who do nowadays.
Idaho guides, I've seen Idaho guides do that.
Yeah.
Channel locks are handy, but yeah, where are we going with this conversation?
It's conversation, Aaron. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't understand what are.
Do you find it? Do you find them valuable? Are you kind of like they're silly? I don't. Dougie, come in here. What do you think? I'm not talking. Aaron's grumpy today.
I would say I mean I haven't had a need to have them on me, but they're useful. on Noel's courses, every cook group has a small set. So mini, like I think they're 5.5 inches, and that's what each cook group uses to lift up the pan, because we use fry bags which don't have handles, so they are packable. So we use, and then we use them for repair as well. But those are mini ones, and they're very handy to use to have. Yeah, you kind of need them out there. You can't really cook without them.
See, we got some people. I think it's good to talk about channel locks. Well, let me show you the piece of gear I got.
Zach, let me say this. On multi-day trips, I carry channel locks.
You do carry. That's what I'm saying. I'm asking. Do you have
within my gear? I have a pair of channel locks. It's just like it's helpful to have them.
Well, why are you giving me a hard time, Aaron?
Because we're really talking about channel locks. Okay, go for it. Go. What's this new piece of gear you've got? That's amazing. That's going to be life changing. Hold on.
Before we talk about my piece of gear, where do you store them? Just so that I know what's going on.
I store them in my personal ammo can if I bring one. But if I don't bring one, then I don't bring them.
But they're your own channel locks that you own or bring on the trip.
Yeah, I'd say Grand Canyon trips. It's really nice to have them. They're
what about like a Subway trip? Would you want them on the Subway?
Not really.
Tuolumne?
Not really.
Okay, Dougie, do you have your own set of channel locks?
Yeah.
See, this isn't a dumb thing for me to be asking. This is a real piece of equipment.
I have my own screwdriver too, Zach.
I have to say, I don't guide that much. When I haven't brought my own channel locks. If I did bring my own, I would say, yeah, ammo can.
Okay. Well, so those of you watching, I'd love to, if you leave a comment. Let us know if you like channel locks, use them if you bring them on your own. But check out these channel locks that I found. Oops, I'm on the wrong thing right now. I gotta get better at this. Look at these. Yeah. Tiny little things. They weigh almost nothing.
Are those the 5 inchers? Is that like Doug's?
Yeah, those are the. We use the blue channel locks with the blue handles, the basic ones. They're just really small, but that looks the same size as the ones.
Doug, how much do those weigh?
I don't know. I should have known that, but they're not much. Like this is something they're made in Germany. Is that Germany? Yeah, and they're called Knipex, Knipex. Have you guys heard of those kind of channel locks? Knipex.
I think I've heard of that name.
I've learned. What was that?
Are they steel?
It's amazing what Amazon can convince you to buy, Zach.
That's pretty much you. All right, you got me there. Okay.
Are they steel?
All right.
You think?
I think they're. I don't know. They seem lighter than steel. I'll have to show them to you. But they're. I'm a connoisseur of channel locks. As a guide, I use them a lot. I like having good channel locks. I discovered Knipex as like a brand of them I like, and then these ones, I'm thinking I could put in my PFD and they weigh nothing. And so if I needed to just do a quick fix, sometimes you're floating down the river and you have to like fix something really quick. You don't have to pull over one boat, open up the repair kit, just do a quick fix. Like this could do a really quick fix job. It would be nice to have.
Yeah, I think. I always go back to trying to. My life jacket's already pretty heavy, so trying to decrease weight. But it depends on the river. Like if you're on a river where you're unlikely to swim or like a longer trip.
Yeah, they weigh so little. Like I wouldn't carry when I'm teaching rowing. I usually carry a set of channel locks, and I also carry a nut driver in my PFD because I'm adjusting frames all the time. So this is just a lighter version of that.
Do you bring a Leatherman with you too, Zach?
No. Because I use a net driver all the time. Like we have these NRS frames that are adjustable, and I'm always adjust. And if somebody flips with an NRS frame with those Longhorn frames, the oar tower is almost always bent. And so, like if somebody flips, you're always gonna have to adjust the oar towers, and like you have to wait for somebody to come with the kit and find the kit, or if I put in somebody's oars are off, I can just quickly adjust their frames. And so I'm constantly adjusting frames. So I always have, when I'm teaching rowing, I have a nut driver, not a nut driver, like a socket with a 1/2-inch socket on it. But I think I'm going to start carrying this, like not all the time, but they're not that heavy and they could come in useful.
But you don't carry a Leatherman.
No. Do you?
I think so. I'm trying to remember now.
Zach, here's a question about the nut driver versus channel locks.
Yeah.
Nut driver will not
It's not a nut driver. I meant to say like a socket wrench with a half-inch socket.
Yeah, but that will handle the nuts better. They won't get
way
sharp
better
edges and get torn up. Depending, I mean, once in a while you use channel locks, but it's better long. Like if you're gonna use.
I don't use channel locks on the nuts because I have the.
Okay.
What are you using your channel locks for, Zach?
I don't know. That's a good question. Now that you ask,
You
I
just
feel
bring
like
them. Yeah, what do you use them for?
I feel like I need them a lot. Like or what if you need to hold like
Because you need to pull on your cam strap. You can grab the end of the tail. Of
that
your
would
cam
be
strap
kind of
and pull it
useful,
in.
but sometimes you have to grab one end of it and hold it and then twist. And so I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. I haven't used them yet. I haven't brought them yet, but they're adorable.
Yeah.
I'd say so. I use channel locks with a couple outfitters because of the plugs on their coolers are such that you channel locks them. The plug is helpful because they're hard to get undone otherwise. And the other thing is there's like groovers, like working for one company, the way they tighten down channel locks can make sure the little threaded screws on top you can tighten and keep them tight. But that's about the only place I use them. And both those things you can use a Leatherman just as well, and Leatherman is more useful in other ways. So
Yeah,
you get leather and a Leatherman pack smaller. So I'd say overall, I feel like a Leatherman's a better thing to have around.
I know a lot of Idaho guides have their Leatherman on their belt along with their channel locks. They're like Batman with all their things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just never use a Leatherman. I just don't like. It's
you
not.
can use the Leatherman to do what Dougie's talking about cooking. You can hold on to the Dio with your Leatherman.
It just isn't as
all
good.
Those other Leatherman as well.
It's just like not as it's not as good of a tool as channel locks. But the nice thing is about working in Idaho is everybody has channel locks, or a Leatherman. So when I need a Leatherman, I just ask, can I borrow your Leatherman? Like if everybody else has it, I don't have to have it on me.
Hey, why aren't? Okay. So in terms of talking about, like, if we're talking about tools we bring with us, we're going to deliver. Definitely bring nut drivers at times. If I'm running pins and clips, it's nice to have nut drivers. I agree with you with the NRS frames. It's really nice to have a nut driver for the NRS frames.
A socket with a half-inch.
That's even better.
Yeah.
But the nut driver is nice. It's just like you throw it in your pocket and you don't worry about it.
But specifically for pins and clips, it's all like a nut driver is only good for pins and clips.
Well, can't you use a nut driver also on your NRS frame?
No, because it's half. Nut drivers, the size is like 5, 6, I don't know, whatever it is.
Oh,
it's way smaller. The NRS it's a half-inch socket to move those, change those frames.
I thought you were saying so. Wait, I thought you were saying to adjust the frame, you have a nut driver.
I said nut driver. I meant to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. I didn't. All right. Going back to it then. Nut driver for pins and clips.
Yep.
That's the only reason you have a nut driver. And then the channel locks are kind of nice, but I feel like more useful is having a Leatherman. You can do a lot more with a Leatherman.
Okay. But
what can't you do with a Leatherman that you can do with? Yeah, look, you got your Leatherman right there. That
I got it right here. I have some. I like them. I think they're cool. I just never use them, and maybe I forget that they exist. I would much rather have channel locks than this little thingy.
How can you fix your little the little screws on your sunglasses? You can fix the screws on your sunglasses with those.
Okay, so that's the only advantage of Leatherman is you have all these tools that you never use. Like
that's the only advantage. That's a huge advantage.
Like, do I really need tiny scissors?
Yeah.
Am I really going to use these tiny scissors?
Because you forgot if you don't have nail clippers, you need to cut your nails on a trip.
I'm not going to clip my nails with these scissors. That's ridiculous.
I've done it many times.
I haven't. I'll just wait, or I'll borrow some nail clipper from somebody. Do I need this file? Is this a file? No, I don't need a file.
I've used most of the stuff on there at one time or another.
I haven't. And then like since other people have these, you're like, hey, can I just buy your Leatherman? That one time a year I need a file.
Zach, that's great that your mentality is just to borrow from somebody else and not be prepared.
But I don't need a file anyway.
You
don't need a file. Prepared. Hold on, you don't need a file. Okay, I have here. It looks like a screwdriver, which I have screwdrivers anyway. I mean, I'm really going to use this really awful to use screwdriver. Like, it has a bunch of kind of semi-useful tools. The real value of the Leatherman is that they're pliers.
Oh, totally. But you can use it. I've used all those other things on it at one time or another.
Yeah, but it hasn't been mission critical. Like let me say, I'd rather have these tiny, cute little channel locks than these pliers. These are more useful to me.
Let's do a little survey. Would people rather have the cute little the little toy channel locks or?
Aaron, do you know how I get it? If I had my computer, I could do a real survey. Plus, these cute little adorable channel locks weigh almost nothing. Like, you'd be surprised how little they weigh. This has weight, so I might carry this in my PFD and pull it out quickly.
What are you going to use it for, Zach? What are you going to?
I don't know yet, but what are you going to use all like your file for? But this is in your ammo can, which you have to like unstrap, pull the lid, get it out, open it up, do your thing, put it back. Like getting to this is usually a pain, unless you're one of those guys who carries it on your belt all the time.
Okay, so we've got the nut driver if you're running pins and clips.
Okay.
We've got a Leatherman if you're not Zach Collier. And then we were talking about, what was the other thing you were talking about? The channel locks. And the other tool, I think the other tool that's really helpful to have is an Allen key. For a lot of frames, you need an Allen key. And I don't know if you've seen, like people make these little wood dowels they put on the end of the Allen key to give you better leverage on your Allen key.
But just one specific size. You're saying there's like, not all the Allen keys. There's a specific
size that for like the pro frames that you use for the pro frames for adjusting a pro frame, for example.
If you're using pro frames.
Yeah, but that's a pretty. So I'd say those are like, yeah, the things I've used the most. Then the screwdriver, of course, is handy to have. But that's why it's nice to have your Leatherman because it also has a screwdriver on it.
Kind of. It's not
or
the
you
best.
Or you can use the end of your Gerber knife as a flathead screwdriver.
Or you can get a screwdriver. How often do you need a screwdriver? Like the tools I need all the time are the NRS frame, ratchety, wrenchy things. I forget what they're called, and channel locks. So if you have those right accessible, you're set. All the other stuff can just be in a box somewhere, like a real screwdriver, a real Phillips, a real not Phillips. All right, we got
a lot of great comments here.
First of all, Justin, thank you
Justin.
for being a member. We appreciate it. We'll make it worth your while over and over and over. We really appreciate you supporting the show. I think needle nose are more useful?
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not.
But you haven't even given one example of what you use those for, Zach.
For pins and clips, for like holding the bottom when I need to tighten it.
Holding
like
the
you know
bottom
when
of
pins and clips when there's a nut at the bottom and one at the top, like this will hold the bottom and I can have one more to tighten the pin and clip back on. I'll use them to carry Dutch ovens. Like I'll throw it and carry Dutch ovens.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do both those things with a Leatherman.
You could do it better with this.
It's so too small. It's way too small, too, Zach. It's ridiculously
But it weighs way less.
It's so small.
How adorable it is.
That's for doing like dental. If you want to do dental work, maybe on the trip, you can use that for like dental work.
It looked bigger on Amazon. I'm just gonna say that and leave it there. You were right about the Amazon thing.
So get more comments.
Like carry Leatherman scale tool. Like carry. Yeah, I mean that's John. Do you carry an external knife and a scale tool, or do you like if you're gonna cut a rope in an emergency? Are you depending on the scale tool, or do you also have an external knife? I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's keep reading comments. We got a lot of comments.
Right, it's very Idaho. Leather makes an adjustable jaw channel lock.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. You can get that too.
They do? I gotta Google that in a second. Yeah. No, I mean in Idahoans, you guys love your Leathermans. That's for sure. Man, there's a lot of Aaron's getting a lot of support here. Adjustable. Okay, hold on.
Vice grip Leatherman.
Actually, hold on, Aaron? Can you search for this while I go through the comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see this. I have no idea. Why not ratchet wrenches specific to butts and nuts? Yes. No, I think that's the thing. I think that's the point we should have made better. Is like you should have the wrenches that fit your frame and boat. So like because Aaron has a hex key or whatever you call that for your pro frames, you're going to carry that for your frame. I don't need a hex key for my frame, so I'm not going to carry it. Right? Like if I'm using NRS frames, I'm going to have that 1/2-inch socket. Where if I'm not using NRS frames, I'm not going to carry that. So definitely specific. A crescent wrench for odd sizes. Yeah, a crescent wrench. They're really. You could. I put a crescent wrench in my repair kit. Instead of a crescent wrench, I'm going to carry this because it's more useful personally.
There we go.
And you can get small crescent wrenches too.
What is this? Multi-tool. Okay. All right. No, I'm going to look into this. This is cool. Wow. Okay. This could be, how much does it weigh?
It doesn't look like it doesn't have the scissors. It doesn't have all the cool, it has a
saw.
It's got a vice grip, it looks like.
Does it have a knife?
Yeah, vice grip. So you don't even have to hold on to it. The vice grips are pretty cool.
Okay, I'm gonna order this.
I'm gonna say this though. Of course, you're gonna order it.
Hey, this is the Gear Garage. I test gear and share ideas about it. Leatherman.
Oh, I love
What's it
it.
called?
I love
Leatherman. What was it called again? I'm gonna order it right now.
Adjustable vice grip Leatherman.
Adjustable vice grip Leatherman.
We've got a lot more comments here. That's a
Okay.
good question. Okay, going on.
Do you want to respond to Heidi's for me real quick?
Why not ratchet wrenches specific to nuts and bolts in your boat? Yeah, you could definitely do that. And a custom wrench could be helpful. And I know a lot of them carry a lot of people carry them in their larger repair kits. I think we're more talking about what stuff you actually carry on you. And so you're not going to carry on you tools or have really accessible tools that you don't even use on your raft. You might have them buried away someplace on there, but not like super accessible. And I'm very hesitant to carry tools on my person, but I definitely running pins and clips. I've carried nut drivers on me a lot just because when that board gets spun sideways, it's really easy to correct it and get it back to where you want it.
Okay, this Skeletool thing that somebody, I think John mentioned recently.
Oh, the Skeletool one looks even better, yeah.
This thing is sweet because it looks light and it has that big old knife for cutting rope. Like, this actually looks pretty nice. Like, there's a nice knife. 25-year guarantee. All right, I'm gonna go shopping after this is over. Big time shopping. All right, so okay, let's keep going. Leatherman.
Yeah, let's see. We gotta keep it up. Leatherman. Yup.
I mean, I own several Leatherman. I just don't ever use them, and then maybe that's just me. Actually, excellent screwdrivers. Okay, I'm super wrong here. John got rid of his external knife. I mean, that Leatherman has a pretty nice knife for cutting ropes. Your delay, like if you need to do, people talk about like, what about that one time when I'm hanging on to a raft and I have to cut a rope with my wrong hand in 1 second or I'm going to die. Yeah. That's not going to be you, John. But I mean, hopefully it doesn't, I think that's fine too. Like, I don't think it's very often when people have 1 second to save their life. Oh. Todd, you can pick a hot piece of charcoal, channel locks, and remove DO lids. Yeah, that's why I like channel locks.
You can do most of that stuff with the Leatherman. Unscrewing stuck propane hoses all the time. Remove DO lids all the time.
You can't pick up charcoal with the.
But Zach, you can't. You're not gonna pick up charcoal with your little baby one either.
I'm not gonna pick up charcoal with it. Personally, I'm never gonna pick up charcoal with this even. But you can.
But now you switched. Why don't you get out the one that we were talking about before? Because that's a whole different piece of equipment.
This is, but what Todd's talking about is stuff in camp. So, the way I probably roll is like I have this on the river, maybe.
Oh God, more stuff.
This is my PFD, and then I have these in my pants pocket that I pull out to like do if I need to deal with the propane or whatever. This is a big pair, but a smaller pair.
It's nice to have a big pair in your kitchen. Also,
thanks, Logan.
Yeah, thanks. That's nice.
It's the size of a regular. Yeah, that scale tool looks amazing. There's some cool tools out there. I gotta check that thing out. I got stuff to check out.
Totally agree, Rick. Yeah,
yep, 100%.
I don't want to carry it. Like when I'm rigging, I put in maybe have it cool on my belt, depending on what I'm doing. Have it accessible or in camp, but not on the river. Yeah.
But how much do you think that scale tool weighs?
I don't know. It doesn't look that heavy.
It's 0.31 pounds. So it's I just Googled that. So it's about 5 ounces. So I think like this Leatherman is too heavy. Like this is overboard. But that scale tool, if that is also your river knife, right? So instead of just having a river knife that weighs like 3 ounces, have a river knife screwdriver pliers that weighs 5 ounces. John, I'm really into your idea here. And the NRS thing and hated it. You mean the NRS? Let me see if I have that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No. Is the NRS equivalent of a Leatherman?
No. I think he's talking about the most dangerous tool on the river. This thing? Have you guys ever used this?
Hold on. Yeah, there you go.
So it has the 1/2-inch socket for things. It has a flathead, and Phillips screwdriver. But it's dangerous, and it's when your hands are cold. It's I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna hurt somebody with this. I'm not
That's like a good piece of protective equipment, though. If you got like if you got like a crazy bear attack, crazy otter coming at you or something like that, you could pull that out and protect yourself pretty well.
Yeah, this thing is super sketchy, I think. But cool. And they have a using on a kayak pick. Whoa. An official Leatherman. What do you mean using on a kayak? Like cutting a kayak open?
Maybe just tightening something, tighten some screws. Who knows?
Oh, the NRS. When he says the NRS thing, he meant the pilot knife. Yeah, that knife is terrible.
Yeah.
The NRS knives are good for cutting like string, but I wouldn't use them for cutting rope, personally. Fixing a grab handle on a kayak, I'm guessing.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Well, that was really exciting, Zach, talking about channel locks. I didn't realize like I had so much to learn about channel locks. Thank you.
We all did. I'm gonna check out those cool, not the skeleton one, but the other one. Summon. So, anyway, thanks for being a part of that, Aaron. You seem really grumpy today.
No, I wasn't excited to talk about channel locks. I was just like,
oh, really? I couldn't tell.
Do we really have to talk about channel locks today? So, yeah, I mean.
All right, you want me to switch now? You ready to switch topics?
Yeah, let's.
Cheer up.
Honestly, I'd rather look at some wind footage today.
I can make that happen. So what we're going to do this episode, last week we talked about rafting, or 2 weeks ago, we talked about CAD rafting waterfalls. Somebody mentioned Barry Cruz's video of pitfalls. So we're going to talk about that here real quick. And then we're going to talk about rowing progression, which we kind of meant to talk about last week and forgot to. So I got card tricks.
Oh, God. I might even prefer card tricks. Yeah, that might be better.
I got card tricks. I'm ready to go.
Just because you're getting better, Zach. Wow.
I've been practicing this a lot. It's pretty cool, huh? The waterfall.
Yeah. Wow. That's actually, you have been practicing it a lot, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's watch Barry's video. So Dougie, we were talking about rafting waterfalls, and this is Barry, who is, I mean, I don't want to use swear words. So if you're a kid, close your ears here. But Barry is a badass. I mean, he really is. He has an amazing history of boating, a lot of awesome places, and a very skilled boater, and done some cool stuff. So I'm basically saying Barry's going to style this.
What boat is that's not his normal boat. That's not his normal Sotar, is that? That looks like a
Vanguard,
PVC,
doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like a PVC boat. Yeah.
I think it's a Vanguard or maybe a Bullet, based on the knuckles it uses to attach the thwarts.
Those paddles they must be IK paddles? They look like they're spare oars?
Behind him?
Yeah,
there's paddles. I think there's both. I think it's both.
Okay.
Like,
the paddles.
Oh, there's a breakdown oar.
Oar and spare paddles there, yeah.
Good eye, Freshie. I mean, the first thing I want to point out here, there's so many good things. So many good things here. He's got his paddles really well rigged on. They're solidly rigged on, easy to get to. He has like lunch in his coolers way behind him. Like there are some potential entrapments there, like little handles and things, but they're far from him. He's got a waist belt throw bag. They're all wearing helmets. Like, I don't know. This is just, I don't know. It's Barry, like he's doing everything right. He's got these frames. His frame's tied on 6 places. He didn't just do the 4 corners, but he did the sides to really lock it down. So there's a lot of excellence here.
So that spare oar is his spare oar. Like the plastic.
Yeah, which is really smart, right? Instead of having it on the side of your boat, it cuts in half and goes behind you.
Yeah, have you rowed with him though?
No, but how often do you use your spare oar? Like you'll survive.
Yeah.
I have some breakdown oars here that are Sawyers that I would row with. I don't know if I'd row with. That looks like a cheap Carlisle or something.
They have I feel like they have a lot of flex in them a lot of times. So I just be like, yeah, like if you're running something that you're pushing your limits and you want somebody that's really going to perform for you, I wouldn't want one. But
yeah, but Aaron, think about this. Like you don't have it on the side of your boat. So let's say giant gap, kind of pushing your limits. would you rather have an oar on the side of your boat you're going to smash into rocks and people going to hit paddling, or like a mediocre breakdown that's out of the way?
On giant, I'm not gonna, Zach, I don't know even where to begin with that. I'm not gonna hike in an oar frame and oars to Giant Gap, first of all, and it's so narrow, I don't want oar frame. So I'd rather have a paddle boat on that.
It depends on the flow.
Okay, similar of the river, similar.
I'd rather have a paddle boat. You want to talk about Cherry Creek? Let's talk about Cherry Creek. I'd rather have a full-size oar on the side of my boat. So if I break it, because I've broken oars up there, and I want to have a decent oar as my backup.
So you'd rather have the decent oar as your backup.
Middle fork of the feather. I would definitely rather have.
Definitely want a full oar there. But you know the trade-off is you have an oar on the side of your boat you have to deal with.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you do.
Class 3, maybe you have that.
No, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. If you rig it right, you can rig it out of the way where it's not a big problem. You can teach people, like, so a lot of people just don't rig them. They rig them so they like stick out too far. You can get them nice and tight against the boat. So
it also though depends on the boat size you have. If you're running a 15, Aaron, yeah, you can get it nice and tight against the boat. But if you're running a 13 with an oar frame, it's a lot harder to get a 9-foot oar.
It depends how far you stick the handle off the back.
But then you have a handle sticking off the back. So wouldn't you rather just have something rigged like this? I know you want to agree with me. You're on, Aaron. You're stuck on a position right now.
No,
Zach,
I'm not. No, I'm not. Have you used those?
Aaron, can Doug talk? We invite Dougie on the show, and you just talk over him the whole time.
Okay, it's okay. What about now those Sawyers that are the blade comes off for a short raft, like a 12-foot, that you can't get it along the whole side? Would you take the blade off and stick that somewhere, and then just have the shaft?
Well, here's the next question: is how do you like with my spare oar? It's very accessible. I can just like undo one cam strap, push it, boom, put it in, and I'm good to go. Which is helpful for numerous reasons. Because if you're breaking an oar, other things are probably happening. People very well could be in the water. And if you're like, oh, I don't have any paddlers. My paddlers fell out. I only have one oar. Okay, hold on while I untie behind here, get this out, put it together.
Aaron. I mean, the way he's got it, he might not have to be able to get the paddles back really tight right away, but he could probably pop that together.
Not as fast as you can pull a spare off.
Yeah,
like I saw. Aaron, remember when Tyler pulled? We were talking about Illinois yesterday. Remember the Illinois trip we did where Tyler, he was running pins and clips in the entrance of Greenwall, pops the oar, goes to shove it back in. You know how you like shove it back in, but he missed the clip and just threw the oar out into the river. So he's in the top of Greenwall with no oar, and he pulls his spare off and gets on in time to make the moves. 15 seconds later. So I think you couldn't do that like this. You have to pull over. You're not going to be able to put that together that fast. So I think, Aaron, what you're saying is the value of having the oar able to quickly deploy the spare in case you break it or something to keep making moves in a rapid. That's the value of having on the outside.
Yeah, and I think you can rig it in a way that for most boats in most situations isn't that problematic. Yeah, if you've got a 10-foot oar and a 13-foot raft, it's going to be much harder to do that. But most oars, versus the length of the raft, you can make it fit. You can make it fit flush up front, and kind of keep it out of the way. It's easier, I think, with the old wood oars too than with the carbon. Just the way the throat of the oar goes into the blade, I feel like it's easier to do that there. So,
well, anyway, I've never seen a spare oar carried like this, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah. All outdoors used to run a bunch of them like this on the south.
If I'm running if I'm commercial boating, I feel like I have a responsibility to get to my spare oar pretty quickly. But if I'm doing the wind or something where I just don't want to deal with a spare oar, I kind of like this actually. All right, let's move on. Aaron, you're annoying today. What was that, Fresh?
Where is this?
This is the Pitt River. Pitt. It's a tributary of the Upper Sacramento.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's a big drop.
It is a big
drop.
I think it's like 20-something feet.
It's kind of a slide, though. It looked like it was more of a slide than a. Now it looks steeper than it did going over, but it's kind of a slide. It's got a little angle to it. That looks fun.
If it was straight down, that would not have ended well.
What brought the okay, Zach, stop playing with the cards. What brought this conversation? You can hear you like, you want me to do this the whole time?
All right, I get it. Jeez.
Okay. What was the purpose? I forgot why we brought this up last week. What was this regarding?
2 weeks ago, we were talking about rafting waterfalls. It was the whole topic of the show, Aaron. We watched a bunch of videos of people rafting waterfalls.
It wasn't associated with last week when we started talking about the rowing.
No. We were talking about rafting waterfalls, and then I said something to the effect of rafting waterfalls is terrible. Nobody ever does well. And somebody said, "Oh, you should see Barry's video of pitfalls." And we actually talked about this waterfall, and I said, I wouldn't run this in an oar boat. I would portage it, and I'd watch like 10 people run it. And if 10 people did it successfully, I'd think about doing it next time. But to me, a drop that big with oars doesn't seem like a very good idea.
It looked pretty smooth, that's not even the stiffest of boats, like it gets kind of stiff, but it's not even that stiff. That looks like a nice, I feel like that was like a nice run, and that's repeatable. That's not, that didn't look like something. He
didn't get lucky, is what you're saying. He didn't get lucky.
Yeah, it wasn't like where he's like the whole boat goes under and it kind of comes out. It didn't look too violent. It looked really smooth.
It has a nice ramp at the bottom. I'll tell you one thing that Barry does at the top. I don't know if he does it on purpose, but it's something I do a lot. Let's go back here. See how he has angle going up to the top, and he straightens up just before the drop, and then kills the angular mow, and then goes over. So instead of like just going like pushing to it, you kind of angle,
and then
get set up, do a quick turn. You have to drop angular momentum somehow, which he kind of did, and then go over.
Well, I think there's a couple things about that, exactly like why that's advantageous. Is coming up to that drop sideways, you can adjust back and forth where you need to be, right? So if I want to be here and I'm a little bit over here, as I come to the seat, I can adjust quickly. If I'm this way, I can't do any adjusting. So you want to be this way so you can adjust back and forth and then turn to go over the drop. That makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. It allows you to adjust your position. You can't, if you're going straight into something, you can't move sideways. But if you're at an angle, you can like do a little fairing or something to get just precisely where you want to be. And then last minute, you can correct your angle last second really quick.
Yeah.
But you have to correct angle. You have to correct the angle, and you have to correct angular momentum. Because if you turn your angle and then the boat keeps going over the drop, you end up at the bottom sideways.
Yeah, and it depends. But sometimes that's advantageous too. You kind of sweep into it.
Yeah.
But I'll say when we do a lot of teaching, we work on a lot is getting perpendicular current and going back and forth, just staying perpendicular to the current to let the river take you down, and then just turning if you need to for a drop. But otherwise, you can just be sideways. I mean, you don't need to have your nose. People have this, so a lot of times they feel like this mindset, I have to have my nose pointing downstream. And in technical whitewater, you can spend a lot of time perpendicular current just going back and forth to avoid stuff. And then you go over a drop, turn straight. I'm going to hit a rock, don't hit it sideways, hit it with my nose. But it's a great technique.
How much would you say that changes with a paddle boat? At all?
Oh, I do the same thing in paddle all the time.
Paddle boat.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, actually, I do that a lot for guiding, to teach paddle boat guiding, just because they're trying to drive it like a car so much, drive it around everything. And I get frustrated. I'm like, why are we paddling downstream so much? I'm like, okay, you just got to, and they don't recognize where the current's coming from. So it's like, get your boat perpendicular to the current and just call forward and backs. And so then you can kind of check and be like, okay, do they understand which way the current's taking them? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is then they call a lot of shorter strokes just to move it back and forth a little bit and let the river do more of the work. Because I feel like with a lot of new guides, they work way too hard and make their crews work way too hard. And when you're teaching people to paddle, captain, it's really frustrating when you're up there and you're just like paddling and paddling and paddling and paddling and paddling. You're like, we don't need to be doing this much work right now.
As like an instructor, you're tired of paddling. Imagine how your guests feel.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're like, let's work on that. So I love that technique of coming sideways up.
I have this theory too, and it's kind of a theory, but when you're going, like I do this over a big drop to make sure that my position is just right. I do this all the time. I have this theory, if you're bringing your bow, like if you just go straight over at the hole, you might like go into the hole and like be violent. If you kind of like swing the boat, the bow kind of rides up over the hole at the bottom. I'm not sure that makes sense, but like the boat acts like an airplane wing in a way. It's hard to explain.
It has more momentum spinning it
like
around.
Maybe there's some angular momentum to kind of help you push through it, but instead of going just straight into it, kind of carrying a little bit into it like that helps drive it up and over a hole. It's a theory. I'm not 100% on it.
I think there's something to be said within there, but Yeah, I think there's a lot of variables involved. Like because you can kind of hit the corner of something and come up and over for sure of the hole, and not hit it right in the middle. So
Like kayaking, I do this all the time. Like I don't just usually don't power into a hole. I usually come into an angle and then take a big stroke to throw the nose over the hole. I'm not like if the hole's here, I'm not like paddle to the top. I'm like paddle, and then do a big turning stroke over into it. Okay.
oh.
I have a question here. What do you think? This is going back to rafting waterfalls last couple weeks ago. What did Barry do with his hands? Did he let go of his oars, grab the frame, or did he hold on to the oars?
Yeah, he held onto the oars.
Yeah, I think
I
that's.
watched that. It's interesting.
I mean, I think this is what we were talking about last week. So right here, he could have thrown his handles forward and grabbed his frame. Was that Dougie?
You're not showing the video right now.
Oh, thanks. Let me go back to that. So I'll play it again. So right here, he could have got ready. He could have thrown the blades forward, grabbed the frame, which I'm going to say is bad form, although maybe in like class 5+ it's good form. But in this case, Barry does what I would do. I would ship, and then he has those oars. The oars are giving him stability in the boat. So he's using the oars for himself to stay in the boat. And then as soon as he goes over, he has his oars ready to pull off that wall and make a move.
Yeah, that's a little dangerous, but you're right. It's nice to know where they are and to lean on them a little bit.
Wait, Dougie, are you saying you think it's more dangerous to have them shipped that way?
No, it's not more. It just looks like there's no better way to do it, but it still looks a little dangerous.
It is, yeah, definitely. Yeah, running waterfalls is just inherently. I see what you're saying. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I mean, we're making the case, or some people make the case last week that throwing your blades forward is safer, because what they were saying is if a blade hits something on the way down, it could knock somebody out or something. So there was a lot of debate before about how running like this might be dangerous.
I mean, I guess he should be ready to not grip super hard, be ready to let go in a hurry if it does hit something. Like have a soft grip, because you don't want to pop your shoulder out going backwards. But it's nice to know where they are. If your hands are on them, you know where they are. And he's probably standing on his feet quite a bit, so hopefully not too much weight is on the handles.
Yeah. All right, let's go through some comments. What do you think?
Sounds good. We got a lot of comments, yeah.
A breakdown or... Yeah. Yep, Jared, I think that we came to that conclusion. Yeah, John, sorry. There is a spare oar in there. There's like 3 paddles, and there's 2 pieces of a spare oar, now that we're looking closer. Spare oar set up for when I need it, for then ease of carrying. Huh, yep, I think that's the consensus. Do people row oar boats through bucket trucking? I know people have.
I think most of the people, when they do it, though, they ship the oars and they take a paddle off the front, don't they? I think that was the common technique.
I've seen video of people just staying in the boat,
Right.
but I bet there's a video. We should find some video of that.
They tie them down, Aaron, right? Or even.
I think I've heard them be tied down too.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
That's just like, why be in that boat?
Because you're doing it over and over again. It's really annoying.
Yeah, but it just, I mean, it's one of those things where I don't know if anybody's got hurt doing that, but man, that bucket trucking is such a violent drop. And a terrible place to swim. Like, and I could see our wanting a empty raft, but going over in like a boat full of gear sounds so scary.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so Todd, I think you're talking about Barry. Yeah, I mean, having long, it's way easier to ship like that with long arms.
Yeah.
Right. It's a massive advantage. So that certainly helps. Oh, Nathan, welcome to the show. Nathan, when we were talking about, he's saying hold on to your oars as much as you can. So yeah, thanks, Nathan.
Wasn't Nathan the one who was not holding onto his oars in that one thing?
Yeah.
But I think the one who precipitated. That's interesting that he says that still. That's cool. Yeah. No, because he had that spot. So was Nathan around when we were talking about the water? Nathan, we were talking about the waterfall you're running where didn't you let go of his oars? And
BZ Falls.
BZ Falls, yeah.
when we were talking about that, we're in the context of like, hey, this is a this is a drop that's like another echelon of boating. Like this is like running over BZ Falls is a unique thing. Like it's not just a normal thing. So it's like it's nothing. I would personally never row a boat over BZ Falls. So we were just having a conversation about it, and the comment I had was like, it's not good form to like just throw your oars forward and let go. And a lot of the discussion we had was, well, maybe in this case it is because that's a really hard rapid, and Nathan probably has a plan. And I'm glad to hear he says the same thing. And I think in that example of BZ, where if it was me, I'd be portaging. So the fact that Nathan ran it and crushed it is super impressive. All right.
Sweet.
Well,
so
go ahead, Aaron.
What's next? Are we gonna talk about rowing progressions now?
Yeah, you ready?
What are we up to? Yeah.
I think I want to share a graphic I made today first, and then talk about what we think is a good rowing progression. Let me see if I can find this. Hold on. It's gonna take me a second. Oh, it's ready to go. I lost permission to capture my screen. Did you take away permission from me, Aaron?
I don't think so.
Chrome has lost permission. I gotta manage permissions now.
Just go share. Just go share screen.
It won't let me. I lost permission.
Oh, duh. Zach, every I feel like the more we do this, the more problems you have with technology. Zach used to give me such a hard time about my knowledge of technology.
Well,
but now it seems like his is like, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So, Nathan, was your plan to start? Was your plan going into it to hold on to the oars?
Yeah.
And then going into it, you're like, no, that's a bad idea. I have to change some permissions in my computer. So while I do that, do you guys want to talk about like a rowing progression? Can you start this, Aaron?
Let's jump into rowing progressions. How about yeah, you want to talk about rowing progressions? Doug, have you taught much rowing?
I've taught a little bit.
And so when if you're going to teach someone to row, where, like we were talking about a little last week, what would you start with? Where's your starting point?
Ideally, so most of where I've done this is on Knowles courses where we have 2 weeks. So we got a lot of time. And we'll, at some point early on, we'll do a class on land where we have students sit on a bucket or something and kind of have the oars mounted in a way that they can just sit on the beach. And we just go through motions, or even just sit on the sand.
Really?
Yeah. And we'll just go through just go through what arm motions you're doing, how the arms are moving, right turn, left.
Are they holding on to something, or is this just all like invisible oars?
You can do invisible oars. You could do. So we might do that. Maybe that's a couple of days in, but we might do that. That might be one thing we try. I guess that would be the first thing. First thing is probably just to get oriented in the raft and see how it feels. But yeah, I feel like forward and back strokes.
That seems like, do people get bored ever and be like, dude, let's just go try to row the boat? I mean, do people get like, sit there and be like, come on, man, let's
Yeah.
I could see for myself, I would be like, what? Oh, I'm sitting on a bucket? Let me just go try it. Come on.
But this is something we might do. It's pretty quick. Like you might even just do it while you're standing there.
Okay. It's not like you guys are spending like 2 hours doing this.
No.
I had this vision of 2 hours of sitting on buckets practicing different moves. I was like, oh man, I would go, if I particularly like 20-year-old me, I would go nuts.
Yeah.
I would have been just like freaking out. Okay. That makes more sense.
Trying for shorter classes. That's a good point. Even no classes sometimes. But yeah, I've done that before.
Hey, Zach, what do we got here?
Okay, so I kind of feel like I knew where this conversation was going to go, and this is how I created the graphic. I was able to share this, but I can't create just the graphic. I feel like there's we'd be talking about rowing progression and have like disagreements and go on wild ends. And I think the progression is different based on what you're doing. And so I think that catarafts, like learning to row a cataraft, this is more like your goal. What's your goal? Is your goal to run a cataraft down class 5? Because that's some people's goal, right? Or is your goal to take a cataraft on an overnight trip with your friends? I think the progression is different for that. Or like with oar rafting, is your goal to just like float in class 2 or to do overnights? And the fishing is a whole different world. Like the progression for people that have rafts to fish almost have an entirely different progression. So I think there's 3 types of boating. I'm generally catarafting, oar rafting, and fishing. And then each of those people are either doing just like class 1 floats or like class 2, let's say even class 2. Their goal is to do overnight trips, which means there's weight in their boats, or to go do something super class 5. And I bet most people, most boaters, would only be in 1 or 2 of these boxes.
So for overnight, you're talking like class 3, 4?
Yeah, or just overnight. I mean, not class 5. When I say overnight, I'm like almost everybody who's an overnight boater is doing one of like 8 trips. The Grand Canyon, the Middle Fork, the Maine, the Rogue, the Lador, San Juan. There's like, I don't know, 8 or 10 overnight trips. That's all they ever do. They won't go do like a run in their backyard. They won't go do the Southwick American. There's people who they want to get good at overnights and just do like 2 or 3 overnights a year. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not like the skill set to do the Rogue or the Middle Fork competently is different than the skill set of catarafting Cherry Creek. And the progression is going to be different too.
I don't know if I agree, Zach. I feel like if I'm going to teach someone to row, like you want to teach them great fundamentals, no matter what they're doing. You want to teach them the class 5 techniques because those are the best techniques. And those are
but some of the class 5 stuff just doesn't apply. And it's almost like wasting their time.
Like what? What's an example?
Like a quick reflip. Like I'm more like, hey, you know what? Just know how to flip a boat back over, have some knowledge, but we don't have to have you doing a 45-second reflip and just crush that.
I thought we were talking about actual rowing skills, the like the rowing itself.
Yeah, right or like crab strokes. Like I'm gonna put that in the class 5. You know what I mean by crab strokes?
Yeah, I know what you mean by crab strokes.
I'm not gonna teach a class 3 boater. I'm not gonna get into that. But the big thing, I mean, those are just a couple like eccentric examples. The big thing is momentum versus speed or velocity.
Okay, Zach, let's go back to crab strokes for a second.
Okay.
What's it? Explain a crab stroke.
It's like a little stroke when you're like half shipped, and you're just doing little strokes on the front. Like when you're trying to pull into an eddy and trying to park your boat on the road, like that type of situation.
Got it.
So I think crab strokes are those, Zach, is because you need to use those like navigating around other rafts, navigating into shore.
Yeah, but it's so much to teach. Like, I think most people, like, you teach it to them and there's just no application. Because, like, if you're doing just like an overnight trip, it's not, you don't need to use a crab stroke ever. I mean, you kind of do, but you don't.
So, Zach,
I mean, I don't use it that much on class 5 either, though. I really don't do crab strokes. I
do it a lot now. I do it like it's more on like narrow rivers, like really tight rivers when I'm shipping and I need to move the bow a little bit before a drop. Like, when Barry went over that drop and he like went in sideways and turned going into it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't have that. Your oars, you can't use both your oars. So I'll have one shipped and I'll do a little crab stroke to get that little bit of angular change ahead of time, which is a really fine detail for like running harder technical rivers. And when I say class 5, I just mean like.
I'll give you the crab stroke. What else?
But I think the big one is like having a boat that's big and heavy versus something that's light and not heavy.
But what does when we teach the like learning how to like push, pull.
Because there's the whole momentum thing, all of momentum. Like if you're teaching somebody to cataraft like harder rivers and they have no real ambition to do overnights. They'll probably do some, but like they want to just get better and better and better and better. I want to run I want to run the Wind. I want to run Cherry Creek. Like you don't really have to spend much time worrying about momentum. You can kind of plow through and say you can stop and start your boat on a dime. Whereas if somebody wants to run a gear boat with their friends on the road, you got to kind of hammer momentum.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, you're wrong then. Dougie, will you break the tie?
Well, Zach, is this, so each of these
before Dougie breaks the tie.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Dougie.
Dougie, Aaron interrupted you again, by the way. I just want to point that out.
Aaron, Zach, each of these boxes you're saying is a different progression. Each of these 9 boxes.
Not exactly different, but I want to make the point that if we just right now came up with a progression, somebody would be like, "Well, I teach this, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you're teaching fishing overnight trips."
It seems like
so. Like we can have a general progression, and that's what we'll talk about. I just want to say like people have very different goals in boating, and so to make one progression for everybody is really hard because everybody has like slightly different goals.
For the first 2, I'd say all 3, even if your goal was to cataract class 5, I would say you would start with cataracting a float. I think that would be step 1.
Yeah, that'd be the progression.
But you'd skip overnight.
Okay.
Because there's rigging your gear in the boat.
Okay.
There's how do you load your
rowing, Zach, I feel like when you say rowing progression, like you start talking about all this other stuff like flipping rafts, that's not rowing progression. Rowing progression in my mind is your rowing skills, your progression in how you row the boat.
It can
like
be,
your techniques for rowing.
It's 2 ways you can define it for sure. If I'm teaching somebody to row though, I'm not going to skip flipping and rigging. So is this discussion simply how they do the act of rowing, or is it how to become better at rowing?
Well, I was going to say guide. Then I'd say the guiding progression. I would say if you're talking about all the stuff that's being a guide, rowing is a skill within it, just like throw bags is a skill. The throw bag progression does not include flipping rafts. That's throw bagging. Rowing, throw bagging are all under the title of guiding a raft.
Okay, so just go ahead. Sorry, Aaron. Sorry, Doug. I don't interrupt you. You're the most important person here.
I mean, I agree with Zach here because he's trying to teach people how to be competent river folks. So that includes
I'm not arguing that either, but Doug, I'm just saying then don't call it rowing.
Okay.
Call it guiding. Guiding oar boats because repairing the raft, fixing your pin.
We're just okay.
That's
we're just arguing about the words.
Rowing progression according to Zach.
Hold on.
Pumping up your boat at put in. That's part of rowing progression, which seems weird to me. That's wrong. Guiding.
Okay, cool. This is just about how
you wear your life jacket.
It's important. Okay, the discussion now is about the words we're using. Okay, let's not worry about the words we're using. Let's have this discussion about the rowing as Aaron describes it, about the actual physical what you learn to row.
Okay.
But the point of this to me is like to point out that like no matter, I want to preface the talk with this little chart to make the point that as people are learning to row, the things they learn are going to be a little bit different. And so if we get onto a certain topic about here's the progression for rowing, it does depend somewhat on the type of rowing you're doing. And one more example would be like if I'm going to teach somebody class 5, I'm going to get them in pins and clips or oarites right away. We're not going to feather. We're not going to mess around with feathering, right? Where if I'm like, we're just going to get right into something that's locked in place. And talk
but
about.
Aren't you going to do that with people who you're teaching them to begin with? You're going to do that initially anyway, Zach?
I will put them in oarites to begin with, and then wean them off of it into feathering. But if their goal is to do class 5, I'm going to keep them on oarites the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just so we can. I want to preface it with this chart to say like we're going to talk about rowing progression, but there's not one way to do it based on what people are doing. And
Agreed. But I'm going to go back, Zach, to your momentum thing and say you need to understand momentum to row class 5. A cataract, maybe not, but in
a cataract.
In a cataract, maybe not.
Or like a light raft. When I run a light raft down the wind, momentum doesn't matter at all. But if you're running, Aaron, if you're running class 5, yeah, like you're guiding people down Cherry Creek, yeah, you need to understand momentum for sure. But if you're like in a light boat, it's just different.
If you're running
And
an
so like
empty raft,
somebody in our rowing schools who wants to do overnight trips, me putting them in a cat boat isn't appropriate because
you're gonna put them in a raft that's super light anyways.
Yeah, or like at first we're gonna put them in a light boat just to like get the feel of the boat. But our goal is to start putting weight in there to start understanding the momentum thing.
But Zach, don't people run multi-days? A lot of people run multi-days in catarafts.
Yeah.
Okay, then why is it inappropriate to put them in a cataract?
Because cataract, I'm going to put them in as like a little 12-footer with like a simple frame. There's no weight on it. The cataract they're going to take on their multi-day is going to have a big 4-bay frame with coolers and things on it. And so that has a momentum. Let's get to some comments, and then we
got
can
a lot of
more.
comments.
So Todd, I almost X'd out the class 5 fishing. I mean, it's pretty rad if you can do class 5 fishing, but I don't think it's a thing. The crab strokes used in fishing for trout. It's interesting. Yeah, I can see that. There's a pretty big gap between Deso and Gray and Hell's Canyon, and a big gap between South Fork and Twal. Yep. But I think I'm going to make the point that there's a big gap between all of those things and Cherry Creek or the Wind. So like in like all of that is sort of one world, and there is a gap between all that stuff. But that's all like to me like overnight stuff. And there's a big gap between that and going really big. What do you think?
Yeah, totally.
I put all that into one.
No, I think Zach, I think you have a good point about like you got to think about what your goal is with your rowing, what you want out of it, and I think that's an important thing coming to. It's like, what do you want out of it? What do you want to do with it? But I think most of the initial progression is the same, and I'd also say is I think like if I'm teaching people, I don't want to put them in that box too early. I want them to have a good overall rowing skills that can be applied to different situations, and they learn those basics. And I think learning
what
about
you said is most of the initial progression is the same, the initial progression, but you get to a point where the progressions start to deviate
a little bit. But I'll say also, like Zach, what I used to look at if we want to take, like guides go row a boat up on Cherry Creek, is if they could style a gear boat down the main Tuolumne, a heavy gear boat at low water, they're ready to go up there. That made them ready. So they understood momentum. They could fine tune it. They could get the boat where they need.
Styling a heavy gear boat down the Tuolumne is something that most people will never be able to do. Like that's already super advanced. And to get to that,
we're talking about to be class 5. So, but my point is,
get to that, it's a long progression to styling a gear boat down.
Exactly. But if you want to row class 5, it's a long progression.
Yeah, but also there's one thing. You're always like in your mind. It's always like running Cherry Creek is you with 4 paddlers in a big Sierra Mac boat.
No,
but there's
no, not at all. The first
rowing a cataract down the creek is much different than rowing a gearboat down the.
I wouldn't want to take a cataract up there. First of all, I think it'd be harder. It scares me. But that's just me.
It kind of scares me too for some reason. But I know people do it
because it's really light. It's pushed up on rocks, and it's hard to get it doesn't track the same. It wants to go straight.
Or just other class 5 like I think the skill set of running a heavy boat down the lower T, if people that can do that, it's an amazing skill set, and you're a really good rower if you can pull that off. But that doesn't always translate to like North Fork Payette. Like if somebody wants to cataract North Fork Payette, the skills you learn on rowing a heavy boat down the T are not the same, because running a heavy gear boat on the T, it's a lot about pulling and doing like airplane turns and shipping and like super tight, like slowing down.
Yep.
North Payette's about like just push through these laterals, push through things, power through things. So they're 2 very, very different skill sets.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Okay, let's get on. I want to hear about the progression.
Hell's Canyon.
Yeah. Hell's Canyon. Yeah. I mean, how hard is the Grand Canyon?
I'm gonna say class 3, maybe 3+.
I mean, there's people.
Not that hard. I mean,
we
really,
know
like
people
we
who
know
have
people
never
rowed before in their life and show up at Wooded and row a boat down there.
And they learn to
Like-
row in the first 6 days.
They learn to row and they make the boat down just fine. You're not going to put someone at the top of the Tuolumne, which is class 4, and be like, oh yeah, you can learn to row here.
I'll
or
never
you're not
make
going to do 2 days on the South Fork and take them over the Tuolumne and be like, oh yeah, you can now go row this, or even a week, and then be like, oh, now you can go row. I mean, that's the thing. It's not that hard. Like, it's stompy. It's big.
And you might flip, and the consequences you might generally you might flip. There's
But I'm
not
gonna say
like
me running, which we won't see anymore. Me running a Hermit at 16,000, going straight down the middle. The probability of me flipping versus some person who doesn't know what they're doing, as long as I can keep the boat straight, we're pretty similar. It's not like I can pull off some mystery super stuff going through there and be like, yeah, my boat's gonna stay upright and yours isn't. It's like that. A lot of that's just like luck. Like, does the wave break on you or not? If you take the big line. So. Yeah,
so that's why I put all of that into like one thing. Like if you're running an 18-foot boat, like a heavy 18 down the Grand, yeah, that's pretty hard. But like if you have like a light like food cataract, somebody can figure that out pretty easy. So it depends on the boat you're into.
The hardest part is all the eddy fences at the bottom and just keeping the boat in the current and not getting sucked into eddies. That's the hardest part.
Now, I want to remind you that we're naive and what's the other word we are again? Naive and something else. We're
naive.
No, the new word.
Lucky.
This fits right into our new show title. I just remember that I just have to look up the show title again. What's the word? I got. Sorry, guys, I don't remember the name of our show. It's a new show.
It was like privilege, but it was something different.
Entitled. Yeah. This is a very entitled and naive discussion we're having. I apologize for this entitled and naive discussion. Aaron, Dougie, what do you think? Is the Grand Canyon hard?
Yeah, I would say it's a little harder than both of you described. But
really?
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying. If you can keep the point, for me,
I'm going to say this, Doug. I think you take guides who've only worked on the Grand Canyon for 3 years and guides who've only worked on the South Fork of the American for 3 years, and you have them switch rivers. Who do you think is going to have more problems?
The guys that worked on the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
But
wait, guides in the Grand Canyon have a hard time on the South Fork?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. They don't. First of all, they don't know how to paddle boat. They don't know how to train paddle crews. but yeah, they're going to have way more problems. I mean, that's
I think
obvious.
what makes it hard is reading ahead of your line. Like, if you don't, that's a skill that takes time to learn, and if you can't do that, you might end up in a bad place.
Are we talking on the South Fork? Or are we talking on Grand Canyon?
On the Grand Canyon.
How many spots are there where you're actually worried about being in a bad space?
I think there's a lot. I mean, there's holes in there that are
like
significant.
Like, I mean, there's like huge holes that are in the middle of the river. You gotta go to the left of it or go to the right of it.
All right, we're being super entitled talking about easy the Grand Canyon is, and we shouldn't be doing that. It's a very elitist.
I think it's an amazing river and it's got fantastic rapids and it's super fun.
Yeah, but you're saying it's not. Yeah, I mean, you're
on the
right.
spectrum of boating, on boating, it's hard, but it's not that hard.
I'm gonna say it's mostly class 2 actually.
It's not class. Now that's elitist. That's arrogant. And this is not the elitist and arrogant.
3.5, 4. Some of it.
What's 4? Tell me which part's 4.
Lava's 4 for
yeah,
sure.
Lava. I'll give you lava. Lava's 4.
Crystal 4.
Yeah, I'll say lava's 4. Yeah.
You say crystal's 4.
Crystal.
Okay.
At least 4 or 5 rapids are class 4.
Crystal's 4. Okay, what
at
else?
least 4 or 5 rapids.
There's a lot of. I mean, when I ran it after I hadn't run it for a long time, I just remember having to stand up a lot and really pay attention to what was coming up, and I wouldn't.
You'd have to do it on the South Fork though too, Dougie. If you hadn't run the South Fork in a while, you'd probably pay attention a few times too. So that's not.
My point is that I wouldn't.
Yeah,
it's not.
You're just gonna go flying over Troublemaker? How's that gonna go?
Yeah, but that takes skill too. I'm saying they both take some skill. They're not both.
Troublemaker's class 3+.
Great. So is a Canyon. 3+.
Oh man, you guys are. I'm gonna say it's class 4+5. I think you guys are elitist.
Okay, some of it.
Anyway,
yeah.
a couple comments here agree with Aaron that this is about specific rowing the boat. So, an hour and 9 minutes in the show, we're about to get to this. We're almost done with these. Is that what, Aaron? Is that a wave sport behind you?
It's a wave storm. It's a surfboard.
Wave
so like
storm.
it's a whatever. It's a surfboard.
Rowing progression on the main salmon. Row this flat section, row the row this riffle. How do you feel about class 2? I think Yeah, the main's a great place to learn. Basic fundamentals, the same for all these groups until class 3. Yeah, so I think that's pretty apt. I think that's a good description. Like everybody's going to learn about the same stuff to class 3, and then once you get to class 3, are you going to go big, and it's a different skill set, or are you going to go overnight, or are you going to hang out and fish and put a bunch of fishing gear on your boat?
But I'm going to say the fundamentals of rowing and actual rowing the boat are all there for all of those.
I disagree.
There's nothing that you're not. Tell me a rowing skill that you're using with one that you're not using with another.
I told you one, crab strokes. I don't use crab strokes when I'm multi-day boating.
You never use crab strokes.
I mean, on the Illinois, but I'm on the road.
There we go. I use them on the Grand Canyon all the time because you get squirreled into eddies, and then you're like getting close to another boat, and you're like, oh, I'm going to run this boat. I got a crab stroke with one while I try to push to get around them so I don't run into them. Or I'm pulling into an eddy all the time on rivers, just pulling in and out of eddies.
All right. Good story.
Yeah.
Man. Todd says that rowing for fishing is. I agree. I think when I teach people who fish, it's just a whole different world. You're teaching a whole bunch of other things you don't think about. Yeah, maybe that. I mean, that's AJ makes a good point here that the high volume skill set is way different than a low volume skill set. So my chart maybe instead of being overnight and class 5, that could be low water, high water. That could be a different thing completely.
And I'm going to say, and kind of agreeing with AJ, and I think it's much easier for people who've learned to row on low water to move to high volume rivers than vice versa. I think that there's a lot more nuance to rowing technical low water than there is to rowing big water. I think it's a way easier transition to row big water. And this is going to go back to my comment about the South Fork versus the Grand Canyon. I think those people who row on the Grand Canyon have a lot of time. They would be catching oars all over the place. They'd be popping oars. They wouldn't know what to do. It's shipping your oars. I mean, the technical stuff. There's a lot. You're doing a lot more. You're only using one oar.
I think you learn to row. The best way to learn to row is on shallow, low water rivers.
Yeah. Because
it's technically really hard, and the consequence of a mistake is you get stuck.
Yeah.
Learning on big water rivers, it's not technically that hard. You can be off by 10 feet and be just fine. And the consequence is like a flip or something more violent. All right, guys. Barrett is triggered by some of these insulting things you guys are saying about the Grand Canyon. I'm with Barrett here. Really?
The penalty points. What are the penalty points? Man. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I flipped in Hermit. A boat flips over and you're in a huge pool at the bottom for miles. Well, okay. What's the consequences? Your boat's
maybe you hit your head, Aaron. Maybe you hit your head and you go unconscious.
Yeah, I mean, Fowler's Rock, Zach. How's Fowler's Rock?
Aaron, I would say this in comparing. I remember one time I got back from rowing a canyon trip, with a heavy boat, 18-foot gearboat. And I went to the North Fork American the next weekend. It felt really easy.
Oh,
really?
Because you've got the skills though, because it's so light and the boat's so mobile for sure. You have those technical skills. You know how to ship your oars, Doug. You know how to do that. If you'd only rode Grand Canyon and you showed up in the North
and you went to North Fork, you'd get destroyed. You would get destroyed.
You would
and you know the lines. Like on the North Fork American, you know the lines. If you didn't know the lines or you're following somebody, it would be a whole different game.
Okay, but it was the momentum and the lightness of the boat. All that made it so nice.
And I'm going to say something else here. Are there more deaths on the South Fork of the American or on Grand Canyon?
There's way more user days in South Fork American.
But there's also a lot more deaths. There's way more deaths.
A lot of people die in the Grand Canyon.
For rafting. The rafting deaths are very, 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 very rare for rafting.
On
people
the Grand Canyon?
falling in the river at night taking a pee, yes.
Okay.
But not rafting. And I think there's a lot of sketchy stuff that the South Fork, there's a lot of.
It's just, but there's way more user days on the South Fork. You're just crushing people down. I've heard you can now walk from raft to raft all the way down on the weekend.
How many? I don't think so, Zach. How many user days are there?
A lot, and there aren't that many deaths. There's not even one a year. That's just a guess. That's a made up fact. I don't know for sure. That's a guess. Hey, so
the South Fork deaths happen when it's cold in June.
High water in June. There's an occasional foot entrapment on the South Fork. There's an occasional foot entrapment too.
Yeah.
But not that many. Bear, I'm on your side on this. I think they're being elitist.
I said it
You're
was hard. So
you're being
said it
you call the class
I'll say,
3,
and I will say, going down the middle of Hermit scares me. Running lava, yes, it scares me. But I don't think there's like technical skills where you're like, oh.
Remember, yeah.
Like look at the person behind me who's like their second year guiding, and I'm like, yeah. The probability of me flipping versus you flipping, not that much different. So I don't think that has to do with skill. And that's
I
not
don't
a
know.
skill.
Man. You have a lot of skill that comes not naturally, but you in the back of your head that you don't even think about. You're unconscious.
Yeah, but like going down the middle of Hermit.
Sure, but
I flipped there.
You know how to straighten your boat out.
I think the one thing about the classifications, it's a difficulty rating.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get like, yeah, lava is certainly scary. It's got big waves. It's not it's not a splashy rating or how scared you are rating. It's a difficulty rating.
But
honestly, lava is not that difficult. Like you have to kind of get to a particular spot and keep the boat pretty straight. Like,
I would
argue
not
that hard.
Being able to read the river and know what spot you want to get to and how to get there and where you are in the river that's not simple. Like that takes.
It's not simple. That's why it's class 4 plus.
The difficulty, it's difficulty of the maneuvering, consequences of a mistake, right? Those are the two main.
It's mainly a difficulty rating though. Like the consequences do play a factor.
That's a huge factor.
But the scale is a difficulty rating, and it has like a consequence like it plays in the difficulty rating, but it's mainly how difficult the moves are to make. So like I think deadheading on the middle fork of the salmon at 1.6 is like you could call that class 5. It's very difficult, right? It's like
the consequences are low enough that it's not class 5.
Yeah,
you just get stuck on a
the
rock.
difficulty is really high. The consequences when you mess up is you're just getting stuck, and so like. Yeah, the consequences are so low. Like it's class. Let's call it class 4. Like deadheading like the middle fork with an 18-foot boat is really hard. Or like low water tuolumne, like you were talking about, Aaron, the 16-foot gear boat is really hard. It's class 4, but like it's not scary. People do the tuolumne all the time. People come on those trips and like I don't like that didn't seem that hard. And then from a guide perspective, you're like, man, I just put the gear boat in between the rocks at stern that airplane move. That was a high skill level, but somebody just sitting there is like, I don't see what the big deal is. I didn't get splashed. I wasn't scared. There's no waterfall. So I think people get confused on the difficulty rating. It's like a how scared was I rating? How hard did it feel rating? It's not a how hard did I feel rating. It's how difficult was the maneuver rating.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, to answer Barrett's question, like if I hadn't seen the South Fork a million times, I'd be standing above Meat Grinder. I'd be standing above Troublemaker for sure. What's that one above is it Last Chance or Last Wave or
Hospital
Bar?
No, above Hospital Bar. Satan's. What's the entrance of Satan's called?
Oh, what is that like? Lost Hat.
Lost Hat. Yeah, above Lost Hat, I'd be like, what's down there? So I'd be standing on the South Fork if I didn't have it memorized.
Let's talk about Fowler's Rock. I mean, if you flip there, it's a long swim down that canyon. Like that's not
depending on the flow.
Yeah,
that's a 900.
Bad
it's not
swim.
that bad. A lot of moves. There are not a lot of moves required in the Grand Canyon. It's about setup and entry. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, be on the right side of the river, be on the left side of the river.
Yeah, I feel like when I think of difficulty, if the move is like start right and go left, to me that's class 3. If the move is like start right, get left, and then do one more thing, that's generally class 4. If it's like start right and you have to get left, that might be class 4. But if you start saying start right, you have to get left, then you have to get right, then you have to get left, that's class 5. That's a very simplistic thing, but like they're between like here's generally what you want to try to do versus like multiple of those in a row. And
where's the river taking you? You know, like where is the river taking you? Like I remember John Brick used to talk about that. Class 4, the river in general takes you where you want to go. Class 5, it's taking you definitively where you don't want to go.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Grand Canyon about making sound decisions when fearful. A lot of places are about that. That applies to a lot of boating. 250,000 user days in the South Fork, Aaron.
Is that right?
I don't know. It's on the internet. Nathan said it, so I believe it.
I mean,
What
A
was
lot
that?
of people do
that's
sport.
I mean, 3 months in the summer.
Well, yeah,
That's a lot.
80,000. I mean, how many days are there in the summer? 100. So that would mean that's 2,500 people a day.
Every day.
Seems a little high.
Yeah. There might be that many user days allocated, but I have a hard time believing that many people.
12 deaths per year. Yeah, but Bear, I guess the question is,
Whoa.
are they actually rafting or is it on trips? Because
I
most
think it's like
fatalities.
that's like the pesto pasta, the falling while hiking.
What's the
I think-
pesto pasta?
Like whatever, someone having a food allergy.
Oh yeah.
Eating like some nuts and some pesto pasta or something like that, or something weird happening like that, or you get
Todd,
bit
I
by
think-
an ant.
Yeah, I think all three of us agree with you on this 100% because we learned low volume technical. That's our background, so we think that. I think there's Nepal guides who run big water every day who would disagree, but I think that technical low volume is where you learn, and
Yeah.
once
You
you
have
have
to
that
learn.
skill,
You have to learn to check your momentum. You have to understand, and you have to be precise with your boat
if you have
control.
momentum, like if you're in a cat boat, you don't have to learn that. Is that real? I feel like we're spreading misinformation. You know how I feel like we're becoming Joe Rogan. Like, is this a fact? Not to
But
say that
I think the 2 to 3 deaths per year is right, and I think he's right about them being type of stuff like that. But there's exposure ones there, particularly those years when it's running 5,000 to 6,000 for long periods of time.
I mean, I think the data we want to have on the South Fork and Grand Canyon is how many user days there are in those runs per year, and then how many deaths happen while rafting, not while like falling in the bank and shore or something. And we don't have that data, so let's not make it up.
Thanks, Willie Bum Bum. Yeah, the wave storm.
Have not dealt with high volume. It is every game. I have to say, like, I've had people who only do high water rivers come take our class 4 school, and they just get destroyed. Like people that have only had high water experience and they're really good at big water, they come to Hood River and there's rocks and things, and we take them on technical continuous rivers, and they can't hang. Wait, if it was Joe Rogan, Aaron talking over people. You are talking over people, Aaron. Hey, just for the record, I'm a Joe Rogan fan.
I do not.
I
like
Rogan.
Thanks, John. Doug will appreciate that the most. I'll stop talking over Doug.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Dougie loves this. Because Dougie doesn't like Joe Rogan. All right. Pool toys and booze. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say the real killers are cold water, no PFDs, and booze. And there's one more too: cold water, PFDs, booze. Yeah, and then bad boat spacing. I think is a killer.
For being able to rescue.
When you look at the AW data, there's a whole bunch of fatalities. What was that term for fatalities? It's like a general thing. Flush drowning. And my theory is a lot of those flush drownings are just bad boat spacing. So those are the things. Okay, boating alone. That's the one. Thank you, Aaron. Boating alone.
Yeah, that's what
boating alone doesn't cause fatalities. It's not the cause of it, but it's a factor in a lot of fatalities. We've talked about this before. Oh, man. If we had data on this, that would be interesting.
Well, since I'm going to go with open oarlocks, just because not so few people run pins and clips these days.
But by number
percentage.
of deaths, it's definitely oarlocks. But what's more responsible for it? I mean, what's caused more deaths, pins and clips or oarlocks? Isn't there that story of the person at BOBO who took a pin through the leg, or was it oarlock through the leg?
It was a broken wood oar.
Oh,
Down there, they would not use wood oars after that when I was working down in Chile, because they talked about that guy who had the broken oar went through his leg. His
all right. Let's finally talk about some progression here. So, like what we intend to talk about the show. When you're teaching people to row, first of all, I want to say, good one, Willie Bum Bum. I want to say, when I teach rowing, I don't. My style of teaching, personally, not our whole company, but my personal style, is just go out and practice, and you'll figure it out. like most of it. I think somebody made that comment earlier about on the main salmon learning to row. I have to find that comment. Like you kind of like go somewhere where like you're challenged and the consequence of a mistake is small, like getting stuck. And so in terms of a rowing progression, let me just throw some things out there that I think, and then you guys can correct me when I'm wrong. But I think it first starts off with like having some good form and understanding like that you want to have your hands out in front of you like this, and like rowing is like a push-up. So teaching that, trying to keep like I think of a box in front of you that you're trying to keep your hands in that box. So there's some like where you row physically in front of you is big, and then having people sit up straight, or trying to sit up straight, and do this thing, and then from there it's like push on the oars to go forward, pull on them to go back, turn one at a time, push on one at a time to turn, push another one, pull, and then use 2 oars at a time, pushing and pulling to turn the boat. So it's like you go from like how you sit and where the oars are in front of you to using the oars to actually move the boat around, right? And then from there, I'm going to say talking a lot about proper oar etiquette, like watching your downstream oar and then introducing shipping correctly. And I'm a big fan of teaching shipping correctly really early because bad habits are hard to unteach. Like if we teach shipping in class 4, people have not been shipping for so long that they have a hard time learning to ship. So I want to make the case early that shipping means handles back, blades forward, and having people practice that even if they don't use it. So again, like watching your downstream oar, proper shipping, and then for me, the next progressions are catching eddies and ferrying. Like let's go catch eddies with our oars and like rowing, catch eddies, and then ferry back and forth across the river. That's a lot of progression right there. What do you guys think?
That sounds great.
Yeah, I'd say Zach, I feel like the first thing I talk about is safety. Is like before we talk about anything else, is like how you're gonna get hurt by these oars. This is how
I thought you said safety. I thought you just started talking about throwbacks and things. I'm like, wait a minute, this was talking about oarsmanship.
Yeah.
Wait, so step 1, they show up and the first thing to talk about is safety.
Yeah, like immediately just be like, hey, these are the oars, and this is how you can get hurt by the oars. Having them pointing at your body, bad idea. You know, that's the biggest one. You're downstream oar, catching something coming up and hitting you. So you got to be very careful your downstream oar. Don't have your oars pointing at your body. And if you don't have the oars pointing at your body, you're going to be okay. And then I talk a little about shipping. This is shipping your oars. I talk about that even before I teach rowing. Like this is shipping your oar. This is safety. And then I also talk about, hey, I feel like some people try to fight the oar too much when they get stuck and caught, and they try to hold it to the point where it's a problem versus just push it forward at that point. Like you don't want to do that. You want to ship it early, but if you don't ship it early, it gets caught and starts pulling. Just push it forward and get it out of your way. Don't have it pointing at your body. Don't be fighting it. So
I don't understand the push it forward thing. You mean just like push when it's out of the water, push it forward?
No, it's like stuck in the water and you're trying to fight and you can't get it out or whatever. Like
this is with spinnies.
Both, but mainly spinnies. Yeah, but both.
Wait, how does pushing it forward? Does it always work? Doesn't it? What if it
catches
the water?
Well, the more the point is, you can't like a lot of times, like you're floating by something, you're floating downstream, and generally you're floating downstream and you're facing downstream, and that oar gets stuck someplace and something like that, and you can't get it out, and you start fighting. And I see people just try to do too much instead of just like at a certain point you just gotta kind of push it away and let go of it. There's certain times when you need to let go of the oar, and understand when that is. In general, I want to ship, I want to control my oars, and I want to keep track of them. I don't want to let go of my oars, but every once in a while, there's a point where you want to push it forward, get it away from your body. Yeah, just don't have it pointed at you. So you guys don't seem as keen.
That's not the first thing I'm gonna teach. I'm gonna teach some body mechanics, and like go out and do a little bit on flat water, and then I'll talk about that for sure before we go do whitewater. But it's not the first thing I want to teach. But I think that stuff's critical.
I do like that idea. It's nice to kind of get that out of the way. Like, here's the things on the boat that could hurt you. Okay, now let's learn how to row. Something to be said about that. We do that sailing courses for Knowles. I do that. We like one of the first things we do is what can hurt you on the boat and how will that hurt you. Yeah.
So would you guys say the big things are watch your downstream oar, ship correctly, and you don't want to do anything with the oars pointing towards your body. Those would be like the big 3 things.
Yeah.
Cool. So once we get to do all that, and then we get on the water, we just like for me it's like catching eddies. I hammer catching eddies for a long time because that's one of the hardest things to figure out, and just takes a lot of practice. Hammer catching eddies, hammer ferrying. To me, that's most of the teaching that can be done. Beyond that, like, it's a lot of practice.
I would say, along with that downstream ferrying, is introducing that concept and starting to work on it and get them to understand what that concept is. I feel like that's an important rowing concept that I want people, like, I know you're not going to be good at it at first, but I want to introduce you to it. I want you to start working on it.
Yeah. I see that introducing. Like, well, so once we get past, like in ferrying and catching eddies and that whole part, that's where I'm like, let's work on pushing into them. Let's work at the pulling. So I'll talk about pulling across the eddy line, like parallel the eddy line. Let's pull into some. Let's push into them aggressively, to like by pushing across the eddy line, and then we'll try downstream ferrying. But people always struggle with that at first. So that goes in the whole catching eddies section. And
downstream ferrying, you just mean make your way across the river while still ferrying, or while still moving downstream.
What I mean about it, Zach, is Doug, is like when you're doing the move at Crystal, right? And you're trying to pull to river right. You're pulling downstream, butt first, looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
I'm pulling to the right shore. I'm looking over my right shoulder, and I'm pulling like that.
Gotcha.
Or that way to pull into an eddy as well.
Got
it. When I talk about downstream ferry, I'm meaning butt first.
Okay.
So once we get past catching eddies and ferrying, what's left to teach? And when I say that stuff, that includes downstream ferrying. In terms of like technical rowing the boat, what else is there? I'm asking the audience too.
Well, when you're talking about rowing forward, are you talking about rowing forward with both oars and portaging, doing one then the other, learning both of those?
I don't teach that, but it's a good point. Like, I think a lot of those things people just kind of pick up with practice, right? Like once you like that, I'm at the point where if I talk, people don't learn anything. So for me, it's like, let me talk a little bit, let's try this out. Let me talk a little bit, let's try this out. And then at some point, I'm like, let's just go practice a bunch. And I think with a lot of practice, like a day or 2, 3, 4, 5 days of practice, people start figuring to push on both. They start to figure they can push on one at a time. I think a lot of that stuff people just pick up on their own.
Yeah, I agree. I think the big thing is initially trying to encourage people to turn using both oars. But then later on coming back and saying, hey, you don't always want to use both oars to turn. Because then I'll say, I'll be like, oh, you got to use both oars. It's like, there's a lot of times you just want to use one oar because the way you want your momentum to change, I'm only going to push, or I'm only going to pull here. Because if I don't want more downstream momentum, or I don't want to slow myself down. I want to drive into that hole a little harder, depending on what's going on.
All right, let's go up and catch up.
We got a lot of stuff we got to talk about here.
All right, we got some wavestorm fins. I think that's a surfing thing.
Yeah, Willie.
Man.
Yes, agreed.
Do I don't think I talk about this ever. I don't even know if I know what this means. I don't think I look at my blade placement personally.
What you're talking about when you're talking about watching your downstream oar, that's what you're talking about, is your blade placement.
So is this specifically I mean, watching your downstream oar, I don't have to look at it. I know my oar's downstream. I'm not going to use it.
No, but you do use it some. Sometimes you use a little bit. You'll do little strokes with it because you have to.
I know, but I don't think that's what Willie Bumham's talking about. Like
Maybe
spotting
not.
your
That's
blade.
what I thought. That's what I thought.
In my normal rowing, I'm not looking at my blade placement.
Well, I think another one too is how deep you put your blades in the water. And I think that's something else you could talk about. There's that spot where you can let go of your oars and they just kind of float there. And ideally, your setup is such that when your oars are in their power position, they're just kind of floating there in the water, and you're not holding that position.
Do oars really just float there on their own?
Yeah. If you
when you let go, they kind of drop like this.
Not if they're set up properly.
All
Ash oars do that. Yeah, they'll just sit like right here. Yeah, all the time.
That
Like
might not
a
be
lot of
carbon.
times, like my oar will be out of like whatever. I'll be adjusting my suncrest, and my oar will drift away from me, and I can like push or pull with that other oar to bring that other oar back to me. It's kind of fun. You can pretend like you have the force, and it'll just come right back to your hand because it just floats at the right
Dougie,
spot.
is he crazy or am I crazy
No,
here?
he's on it, but it has to be the exact right setup and the perfect oars and the right balance. Maybe carbon oars don't have that balance. I'm not
Well,
sure.
do ash oars have that balance?
Yeah, the
I've
ash
had
oars
that
usually
happen
do.
before.
The ash oars in general, the
have to
ones that I
create
use, they
that.
do that all the time. I can always do my tractor beam band. Yeah.
I haven't run ash oars in so long. I can't remember. But most people don't have that, Aaron. That's not a common thing. Like
No, I
unless
think it is.
a lot of
you,
people
you
run-
want your setup. You want your setup so your oars float where you want them to hold them.
no,
For
There's
pushing.
that's not
You
going to
don't always have
happen.
the variables to tweak that unless you.
Zach, I think you'd be surprised how often it actually works.
No, it does. Because you're wrong. It doesn't
Within
work.
an inch or two. I mean, it's right there.
No. It goes. If you look at your oars, they go like this.
I'm not talking in a rapid. I'm talking like in flat water.
In flat water, when you let go of your oars, they have you have to actively hold
No,
them
that's
down.
a terrible oar. That you're buying awful oars.
Do you run counterbalanced oars, Aaron, or how do you do this? Do you duct tape a
I
rock?
usually, I pretty much no. I run the all ash, but I run the cataracts too, or not the cataracts. What are one of those the carbon fiber shafts? I'll run those. I do that with those.
All right,
Yeah.
I think you're just wrong. I mean, you're being
No,
elitist. Like you're using your one.
how's this elitist?
Zach, we'll try it on. This is physics, Zach. You love physics.
Yeah, exactly. They just
Right.
float there. They're oars. They're designed to do that. They're designed.
Well,
to
hold
float
on,
like
no,
that.
hold on. You can't just say their oars are designed to do that. Like they're not designed
Good
to do
oars
that.
are designed to do that. Like
The oars,
they're weighted
there's nothing.
properly.
No. The oars are not designed to do that. That is not a fact. They are not designed. Oars are designed to be oars, not to bounce. You balance them by pivoting them on a certain place. That's how you balance them. Like where do you choose your?
Yeah,
pivot?
but they know a general
oars were
way
designed-
where
it doesn't have to
you
do
want to
with the
pivot the
oar
oar. Like there's a general spot where you want to pivot it, and the weight should be even on both sides of that oar.
No, you're insane.
Aaron, I think that only applies to certain oars because you just don't have that many variables. You can move it in all the way to make it balance. But then,
No, you don't have to. No, but I mean, most of the
The
time,
only
they're-
way. No,
they're structurally built that way.
You're being entitled right now for sure. Like you have your 1-2 set of like fancy
but Aaron,
oars.
I hear what you're saying. It does work sometimes, and it's awesome.
I think you are. I think you're not giving Sawyer enough credit.
Sawyer did not. No, square tops are kind of designed like this. Square tops that are a little heavier because they have that wood. There's a natural. They call it a natural counterbalancing. It's not natural. They just put wood there, so it's heavier. So square tops generally kind of do that, but you're adding weight to the oar to do that. It's a counterbalancing feature. It's like making the oar heavier in that end. Most people, though, Aaron,
No, that's different.
The oars-
That's so when you pull it out of the water, it won't be too heavy. It's a different where it floats. Where it floats is separate from the counterbalancing. It
I'm
will float.
gonna have to try this. I've never thought about this.
Oars float. Oars float on the surface. Do you know that?
Aaron,
Right?
that's
They
the
float.
thing.
They
The
float.
carbon fiber might float differently than the wood oars. They're
Oars
they're
float.
heavier.
Oars
I'm-
float.
The blade.
I'm gonna Aaron,
Carbon
let me
fiber oars float. They all float.
All right, let me try it.
They don't
I
just
haven't thought
sink.
about this. No, I get that, but they don't just like hang out in front of you like you just like use the force to
Yeah,
your back. Like
they do.
that's not.
Aaron, certain oars do. I'm with both of you here. Certain
No,
oars do,
no,
but it's
Aaron-
not automatic.
Or,
If it doesn't mean
you
it's
can't be
rigged correct.
Switzerland all the time. Take a side.
It doesn't mean it's rigged correctly when they're in that position. You might be rigged correctly.
And I
they-
think
they don't
most
float.
people, I mean, when we watch videos, everybody has their oars too far apart. Like the distance from their oar lock to their hand is too short. Like people need to bring the oars in. And so I think that most people have their oars out like this and they really go down. Aaron, you're on mute, which is probably better for all of us.
Exactly, Zach. If you have them in the right spot, they'll sit right there. Yeah, and that's why
We're gonna
sometimes
try
I'll
this.
overlap them a little bit too, so they'll be more comfortable. I overlap my oars, so they float right there
But-
too.
Yeah,
I want-
most people don't want to overlap the oars.
Bum Bum's question too about
Listen, we
blade.
got a lot of good information here. We got to look at all this comments.
Okay, so let me just I want to finish this. I don't spot my oars. And so maybe I'm completely incompetent in teaching people the wrong stuff. So I'd like to know more about this. You're right. If I have a downstream oar, and I'm using it on the surface of the water, I'm watching it like a hawk.
Yeah.
If I do use my downstream oar, which I teach people not to do, and but if you do, you're like on the surface of the water being like Super careful.
Pushing away from your body so you're not close to it. You're trying to get it at an angle where it's not a problem.
But other than my downstream oar, I'm not watching my blades. I'm looking at the river. I'm reading water ahead of me, like thinking about stuff, watching birds, like, you know.
Well, Zach, you can't do a lot of spotting too because you're always using pins and clips. Like the other thing you can do is you can drag your oar along the surface of the water if you're running locks in shallow water.
I run oar locks. I'm not only a pins and clipper. Hey, I run open oar locks, no donut, no spare, no leash. So I'm
a bad role model. Let's get to some comments.
I'm all about the freedom of movement. Lava's class 4 consequence, but the moves are class 3.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd say
Sean,
that.
you're becoming elitist like Dougie and Aaron.
No, I think that's reasonable. Like you can get beat down in lava. It'll hurt people.
Is this the comment you want to
Did
get?
Zach park it on Fowler's once? Do tell.
Were you there, Dougie? Do you want to tell a story really quickly, Aaron, or if we just keep going?
How do we say it? I remember like this is when we were at this university program we were learning to guide, and the guy in charge of the program was there that day too. Was he in the raft he wasn't in the raft with you though, was he? No, but the guy running the program was there that day, and of course Zach's guy in the boat, and Zach's supposedly one of our star students in the course.
No, it was my first year guiding.
I was running the rafting program at that point. And so Zach's one of our star students, and he goes through and just like plasters his boat on Fowler's, just plastered. It's a bucket boat. It was a mess. We had like 20 people pulling on the line to get it off. Yeah, it was not good. Is that the story pretty much? Would you say, Zach?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I don't know why you ran into that rock sideways.
I was bad teachers.
Bad trainers.
Bad trainers.
Bad instructors.
Because I was a kayaker in a raft at that point.
Aaron, I remember one time you and I paddled for you, and you had an oar boat on the North Fork of Marion. And at the bottom, you said, that was my first time rowing the North Fork. And I think I knew that, but you were like, kind of.
Yeah, I didn't tell you beforehand. I remember then you're like, really? You're like, I'm glad you didn't tell me that beforehand.
No, I didn't. I knew that, I think. Anyways, yeah. You did a good job. Yeah.
How do you use currents to move the boat as a rowing thing? I feel like is this in the purview of what we're talking about, Aaron, of rowing technique? Is it like technical rowing, or is this more like something to like because it applies to paddle boats, it applies to all boating. So would this be under rowing progression?
Well, I think in some ways it is. I think he's got because how you use it with an oar boat is different than how you use it with a paddle boat.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that I just haven't figured out how to teach.
It's also
really hard to say, hey, let's sit down and talk about because it's every rapid's different, every inch of river is different. So if you're like, oh, you do this, but then it doesn't apply downriver.
I'll say tracking of a raft, I think, is a key aspect of it, is talking about tracking. You know me, I love to go back to tracking. I think tracking of the raft is particularly important for gear and oar boats and paddle boats, for that matter, all of them. And think about that and understand what the current is doing. And more the little waves, too, that are doing to your boat. So,
but can't you just learn that by practicing a bunch? You're going to be like, oh, a wave did this, I'll do that. Like, you start to get a feel for it. It's really hard to teach this in a classroom setting. Like, let me stand here and talk to you about how currents will move the boat or how to track.
Yeah, but
I feel like these are things you learn by doing.
I agree, Zach, but I still remember when Phil Perez, this guy, he talked about like hitting a wave and calling a back paddle into a wave to slow you down and slide you across the river. And I was like, whoa, I never thought about that. And then I started using it. But I wouldn't have thought about it if he hadn't said that to me.
But you can't learn that in the first 5 days. It's something you have to get a bunch of days in the water and then have somebody be like, oh, you should try this. Like if somebody taught you that on day 3,
in the progression. That's
like
if
somebody taught you that on day 3 of guiding, it wouldn't have sank in because you're
I would have forgotten it. I was not ready for that. No, but but that's part of the progression. I think he's right. He's using currents to move the boat. I think initially, you're about, okay, how do I propel the boat? And then once you get past that and you can do that stuff, then like, well, what's the river doing to the boat? And how do I use what it's doing to the boat? Like, because I'd say that, and you're right, a lot of it's not just for rowing, but there's definitely rowing parts. And I'd say like, getting how to get off of rocks when you get stuck on rocks, how to pivot and spin and use your oars to spin and pivot. A lot of it's just practice and doing it, but there's some that like you know, we've all learned stuff over the years when we've been on the Tuolumne because people tell us like, you just gotta keep spinning, pull on the oar, ship one oar, grab it with the other with 2 arms, and pull as hard as you can. So I think there's stuff like that works.
Wait, that has nothing to do with currents moving the boat. You're on a whole other tangent now. Getting stuck on a rock.
It's not current, but it's more like secondary stuff, not basic rowing skills.
Sorry, we're stuck on this comment, but I'm gonna say first of all, it's really this. I have a hard time teaching this. Maybe I just suck at teaching. It's probably the case. What I do like to teach is surfing, and because surfing is something you can learn how to do and you can practice, and then using surfing waves to get back and forth across the river. And so like I think that's something that's super teachable, is like using waves and even holes to make maneuvers in the river.
Particularly with cataracts. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and Todd's comment, like after eddies and ferrying, it is learning to let the water do the work, but it's not. I think the river. This is my opinion. I'm gonna say this is gonna sound super hippie, Dougie. This is for you. The river has to teach you that. Another person can't necessarily teach you that.
I think the fine tuning, you're right, Zach. But I think it can be precipitated by comments by people,
yeah,
or seeing people do stuff and following them, and be like, whoa, and then realize they did that on purpose. You know, and then I'll say, like, in some ways you're right, because anything that happens to you in the raft, you can use that, right? Like hitting a rock and spinning off a rock. Oh, I didn't like it there, but I dumped momentum and I ended up on the far side of the river. Well, sometime I could use that if I needed to. So yeah, I think there's something said for that. We're way behind on comments, aren't we?
Okay, I think they're good comments, and I think this is a good point. I like this point.
Yeah.
And like I think this is where, like, for me, after eddies and ferrying, there's a lot of time of now let's just go practice before the next rowing lesson. But in that time, you can learn about like flipping boats and learn about all the other intangibles about boat spacing, boat order, all that stuff as you're getting this practice. That's my take on the progression here. I was once told you first got to learn how to raft. I'll teach you a row. In general, folks need to learn how to read water, learn how to use water to the boat. Yeah, learning how to read water is hard. And teaching how to read water is very hard. If somebody's ever asked you, teach me how to read water, and you're in the boat with them, like it's just really hard to do. I think one of the exercises we do in the class 4 school is we make everybody be a lead boat one day and make them read water and give them the opportunity and then talk about it afterwards. And if this is where river hydrology comes in, or hydraulics, whatever you call it, like understanding what holes and waves and different spherical currents are and all the different things. This can help with that. And understanding like cutting the C and shooting the V. There's a lot of theoretical stuff about reading water, but a lot of reading water is just, I think, from practice. It's really hard to teach with words.
Yeah.
Or video.
Yeah, but I agree it's hard, but I think Willie Bum Bum has a good point here, is that in general, I would prefer people learn to paddle captain first and then learn to row. And I think that learn to raft and then learn to row.
What? Why are you better if you learn how to paddle captain first? I
like the progression.
Aaron, that's very entitled of you, by the way. I want to make the point. And naive. It's entitled and naive. It's a little bit douchey too.
Well, thank you. I agree with. I think rowing. How do I say it? I don't know. I like that progression of the paddle boating to rowing. I think it's a helpful progression. I just see people do really well with it. I notice people going rowing to paddle captain doesn't work as well.
It's really good. Okay, this is what always happens. You're coming from a guide perspective. As a guide, I agree with you. I want guides to paddle boat first and then row. It's the best progression for guides. But a private boater isn't going to, it's just not realistic. Like, if you want to get into whitewater, you have to go find 4 friends to be your paddle boat.
I even think in teaching a course, like teaching a beginning course, having them all in the paddle boat first,
that's
they're putting
insane.
the paddles in.
I can't. First of all, I'm frustrated because we talk about this all the time, and I'm tired of this discussion. The problem with doing the course is if you have 4 people in a paddle boat, only one of those people can be in charge at a time. So you're only getting a quarter of the stick time.
Yeah, but you don't.
On the oars.
But they're but,
Yeah.
but
No,
Zach,
that's Aaron. And plus, if
Will,
someone
that's
wants to
Willie
have-
Bum Bum's point. That's Willie Bum Bum's point right there.
No, it's
You
not.
got to learn how to raft first, then learn to row. And so a lot of that
That's
is
not
when
Billy
he's
Bum Bum is not saying learn to paddle boat first. Then
no,
learn
no,
to
but
row.
but you're in the raft. You're still learning about momentum. You're learning about how the raft goes. And I think one of the things that I like about that paddleboat thing is like you're spending time in the raft where you're not having to worry about making the calls, just seeing how things play out. And you're thinking from a guide perspective, but you're not having to guide the raft. And I think there's a lot of learning.
Come take a rowing class with me. All right, for 2 days you guys in a paddle boat. Before I teach you how to row, I'm going to shove you guys in a paddle boat, and so you can get a feel for rafting. That's insane.
Well, I know that won't sell well.
Wait, hold on,
I agree
Aaron,
with you. That
Aaron,
doesn't sell well.
We were talking about like a rowing progression. So your rowing progression starts with step 1, go on a paddle boat.
Yeah.
Step 1 of your rowing progression is go on a paddle boat.
No, you're right. I know. You're right.
Right.
I'm not. But I think there's something to be said for like that idea. Yeah.
Okay, Willie Bum Bum, I see. I agree with you here.
Like you're dropping your oar in the eddy behind the rock.
That's what I was thinking
water.
too. Like, I'm looking at where it's going. If it's shallow water, I might look at a few of the strokes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think at the same time, though, I think after a while, like oars go into rocks. Like think about the Tuolumne Aaron. A number of times we've just jammed an oar into a rock and pulled off of a rock, or like gone through something and just like beaten them on rocks all the way down. So I think some boating involves.
You can do that. I'd say that's not a perfect run, though. The perfect run, you're not doing any of that.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. But there are times
like the goal is to do it cleanly.
to not do that.
Yeah.
But there's times when you're slamming your oars.
Totally.
Rocks,
You're stuck in
you're
wedging off of a rock with your oar. There's all sorts of stuff you're doing like that. And I think that's something else using, like you talked about doing the little strokes, but using the backside of it up against a rock to push yourself out, that works real well too. Yeah.
I think if I was a really good teacher, maybe I could teach that. I mean, this would take like if I had like a PhD in rowing, like went to grad school and studied.
I think anticipation you can teach a little bit. I don't think the timing for the move, you can do some things to help. Like I think the big thing is like, hey, try to hit the rock. Try to hit the rock before catching the eddy. Above that eddy. Like stuff like that.
I think you can do. I'm going to say there's a distinction. You can do coaching here, but you can't do teaching. Like I can't sit you guys in a classroom and say, hey, here's how you better react to blah blah blah. But on the water, when I'm coaching, I can say, hey, let's try to do this one thing. And the example you gave, Aaron, we use all the time. I'm like, I want you to catch that. I want you to catch the eddy behind that rock, and I want you to tap that rock as you catch the eddy. Because if I give people really hard eddies to catch, they're always like 4 feet below the rock. I'm like, I want you right behind that rock, and we practice that over, and that's coaching, like all day long. I'm like, see that one? I want you to catch that one. I want you to tap don't be afraid to hit the rock, like slam into the rock. I'd rather have you hit the rock than go 4 feet downstream. And then
usually when you tell them to hit the rock, they still miss it by like 3 feet.
Yeah. Then I start saying, this time I want you to hit the rock and bounce off of it. Like next time I'm like, you have to hit the rock. I don't even want you to catch the eddy. And learn that you can hit the rock, and you can use the rock. Actually, you can put your bow up on the rock and spin into the eddy as a technique.
Yeah.
Anticipation
too. I think you can work on that. Like teaching them that you got to look farther downstream. You got to plan ahead. Think multiple steps ahead. You can't just be on this step. So,
But I would say I think that they come with practice or with practice and coaching.
Oh.
Somebody who's like all day long, like, hey, try this, try that, try this, try that. Counterbalance, yeah. Most counterbalance oars don't. It turns out if you add 20 pounds to an oar, it won't float. It's same thing with the PFD. Counterbalanced PFDs don't float either. Counterbalanced Dougies don't float that well. Remember when we counterbalanced Dan for his bachelor party? Dougie Fresh?
Say that again. I was reading the comment. What?
Remember when we counterbalanced Dan for his bachelor party?
I do.
I'm not only a pins and clipper. You got a Willie Bum Bum. That oar through the leg was not broken. The handle pushed through the thigh. It was against the on box. Ooh, handle push through.
That's right. Thanks, Sean. Thanks.
That's the
Yeah.
worst.
Uh,
If you place part of your boat in current of a different speed, it's going to turn. Yeah, that's actually pretty useful. I mean, I think we learned that in catching eddies. I put this under the catching eddies part, and so when we teach catching eddies, we talk about this a lot.
And that's another one though, is like when you're teaching someone, and like this is why I like being in a paddle boat with people, and then all of a sudden the boat turns, and you'd be like, "Hey, did you know why the boat turned?" They're like, "No, because your nose was in the slower water and your back end was in the faster water." So yeah, that's it. Yeah.
What are you saying? You want to paddle boat with them so you can talk to them more, and that's how they're gonna look? Like you could just be next to them and tell them those things too.
I think it's better to be in the boat with them. I like being in the boat with them.
Then go in the oar boat with them. Sit in the oar boat with them.
Yeah, but then you're just one versus. I think it's nice for other people to learn from, to take turns, have some time working on it and have a break. Have some time working on it and have a break, and just to listen to other people and hear other people get feedback. Because I think it works a lot better. People are much better at getting feedback when it's not to them. You know, when you hear when I'm saying, Zach, you need to do this better. Doug's like, ooh, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that.
All right, good point. That's a good point. You can use those currents or need to counter the spin. Aaron, you're on mute.
Kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah. Person who learns to ask is I think a lot of people want. I mean, they love learning how to read water. People love it. We asked it a lot. Teach me how to read water.
Well, and I think we've discussed before. I think the best way to learn to read
do
water
it.
is to start whitewater kayaking. Be a terrible whitewater kayaker. You're going to learn to read water really fast. Like you're going to understand a lot more about currents in a kayak, because the current does a lot more to your boat. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it flips you like that. You got to be on it. You got to
But
be looking at the
you
currents all the time. And these little currents that you didn't think about in your big huge raft, all of a sudden you're like looking at all these little waves and thinking about everything.
But you can learn to whitewater kayak and just follow other people's lines and not learn to read water. I think the best way to read water is to read water.
Mhm.
Like it could be. I mean, ideally, it's in a kayak. You're right, is better. But like, I'm not going to teach a rowing student like, hey, go learn how to kayak. So you can read water. I mean, like we're going to learn how to read water in your oar boat. But I think the best way to do it is be forced to do it and realize it's not that hard. I think people are really scared of it. Like, oh, I don't know, what am I going to do? And like when somebody's in the lead and I'm like, hey, you really can't mess this up. Like just there's better places to go and there's worse places to go. Take some guesses. And then watching them go through and they usually figure it out. And like, yeah, you did a good job. You read the water. Or like, nah, you didn't notice that big rock there, huh? Huh. Like you can point things out and coach them. Man, why do so many people agree with you on stuff before me? Can somebody please agree with me for once? Good decision making. A lot of new rowing mistakes is doing nothing or doing it too slowly. Wait, what's that last sentence? A lot of new rowing mistakes is doing nothing or doing it too slowly.
A lot of people new to rowing is just
A lot of people
waiting
new to
too
rowing.
long to make a move. It seems like. What do you think?
I think when people are learning to row, sometimes they're doing too much. Like sometimes I'm like, hey, you can do nothing too. Like I spent a lot of time saying you don't have to constantly be moving the oars. You can float too. Like so, teaching people it's okay to, do nothing at times. But I can't agree, Barrett, and I can't disagree with you and Aaron more on this.
Well, it's
Ridiculous.
It's not a bad. It's a great. That's the way we all learned, is doing it that way. and
It's
we
paddle
liked it.
boating.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, not everybody can do that. Has the privilege to do that, but it's not a bad idea.
I guess my issue with it is logistically pulling it off. Like,
Sure.
So Aaron, on a 5-day rogue class.
No, Zach, it doesn't work there. It definitely doesn't work there. And
It doesn't work on a private class either. If it's just one person, one-on-one.
No,
I can't be
not there either. No, there's, I mean, if you have
It
the
works
right
on a
class,
professional guide school.
I'm just going to say this. If you're looking to, I think people who are looking to learn to row and they see like a rafting course that has paddle captain
No, hold on,
and
Aaron.
rowing in it,
Aaron, you're just
I don't think
selling
it's
what
a
you
bad thing for
offer.
them to take. That's what
Aaron,
I'm saying.
Aaron, what you're doing is selling what you do. Like, hey,
No, not really.
Just so you guys know,
I don't
I
care
teach a
that
couple
much.
courses where you paddle boat and row, and I think it's better. So
I think that's the
take my
majority
class.
of courses that are out there, Zach, do both.
The
And that's my
Or-
point is that I think people are
No,
like, well, Because I hear
Aaron,
people that, and I talk to them, I just want to row. And I'm like, dude, you'll learn a lot from paddle captaining. And I've had people on a lot of the classes I've taught over the years who said, oh, I took this because I wanted to learn to row. I didn't realize, first of all, how much I like paddle captaining, and I didn't realize how much I've learned from the paddle captaining part of it.
And then here's another thing. To Aaron's point is,
why are you agreeing with Aaron, Dougie?
if you hear of somebody saying, "Oh, I'm going down this river, I need paddlers," and you're like getting into rafting, that's a great chance to jump on that and see what it feels like in a paddle boat. And I'm not saying that's what you should do in your courses. No, it's just too hard logistically. But like I said before, that's how we all learned and we liked it.
I'm gonna make the case again. You're gonna learn how to row by rowing. You're not gonna learn how to row by sitting in a boat and taking turns with some people in charge. The more like you want time on the sticks.
Any exposure is great, good exposure. Any exposure is
good exposure, except for sitting in a boat waiting for your turn to guide.
No, Zach, you learned so much.
I know. I just said that to trigger you. But the other thing is, Aaron, when you say most courses teach rowing and paddling, I think you're wrong. I think that the courses you have been involved with through ARDA and Lake Tahoe do that. But if you look at the average guide school, it's paddle boating.
Most of them are paddle. You're right. Most are total paddle boating.
Yeah.
But the ones that have rowing in them, the most ones that even have rowing in them, also do paddle boating. Is I guess what I'm saying. Like if you're looking to row, you're really limiting yourself. You're limiting yourself basically to Zach's classes if you want one that just teaches rowing.
No, Orange teaches otherwise. Aaron, just so you know, I'm not selling a product because Orange teaches a rowing only school.
Oh, do they?
Nature Nicole has a rowing school. Alicia in Colorado, they have a rowing only school. There's a bunch of them.
Okay.
Because rowing only, like if you want to learn how to row, you should row. Like wait, so you're saying if you want to learn how to play football, go play soccer first?
No, I was saying if you want to be a football quarterback, maybe play some baseball first.
Okay, that's a good point. Touche. Paddleboarding for rowing is not my emphasis. Learning how to read water.
Okay. Yeah, Willie, that makes sense. So, Willie, how do you recommend learning to read water how are they doing this? Are they going in a rapid with other people? Are they going swimming in rapids? I guess that's what we're
swimming in rapids is a good way to read water too.
Yeah, right.
Reading water is, there's reading water like little riffles, what they're going to do to your boat. But then there's also, here's this horizon line. Can I quickly assess where to go in it? To me, that you can't learn that swimming very well. That's more of a trial and error.
Or you learn it quickly.
Well, yeah, you can't see very much, but I would say learning to see a horizon line and start to assess where to go on the other side of it is practice. A lot of practice. It's hard to teach that.
Yeah. And knowing when to scout or not to scout. Like, that one, like we don't have enough, there's not enough information. Time to scout.
Yeah.
Shallow rowing needs to place downstream blade on top of wave crest, not trough. Place blade. Yeah,
He's
that's a
talking
good
about
one.
placement of oars, probably.
Yep, that's a good one, Sean. Duckies, actually, I gotta tell you, I could see putting people in duckies versus your paddleboat idea, Aaron. I think
that the ducky's a great like the idea of the whitewater kayak, but the ducky, I like that one a lot. You can learn about catching eddies. You can get spun around. You can drive the boat. I think that
you get lots of stick time. Like you're in control. You're not sitting there waiting for somebody. You're just like, duckies are a great way to get into boating. That's super interesting. We should bring duckies in our class 4 school this year. I think about it. It's a good suggestion, Jared. All Carlisle's oars sink. It seems to me like an important detail of oars is that they shouldn't sink. Right?
Why is that?
Because if they come off, they sink.
They
should float.
They should be on a leash, right?
Yeah,
I'm not arguing they should sink. I'm just saying, why does it matter?
If they come off the leash.
Well, you're gonna sell a lot more oars if your oars sink.
True.
Well, they shouldn't come off the leash, though. Yeah. Anyways, just a thought.
Heidi, I don't know if coaching services are available. That's what our private classes are basically coaching. They're whatever people want. But Heidi, in the class 4 school that you took with us, hopefully there's a lot of coaching. along the way, I was like, hey, pay attention to this, pay attention to that. Like, we do long days in the water, and then throughout the day, it's like, hey, try to catch this eddy, try to do this, try to do that. Like, try to make this hard surf. And so that's our class 4 schools are a lot of coaching with classes in between. Kayaking, I thought the progression was kid, teen kayaking, day trip, paddleboating to overnight rowing. But you and elitists, yep. Back to, I thought the progression.
Yeah.
That's the only.
I think like if you want to be a superstar boater, that is like starting as a kid. I mean, just starting anything as a kid, you're going to be way better at it. And I love think the paddle boating to overnight rowing. Totally agree with that step as well. I think that's like.
And let me go back. I mean, Barry, you're right here. This is it. And Aaron, I'm not. The more I think about this, I don't disagree with you. Like, the paddle boating is a good idea. I just it's a good if people have 10 days or 12 days or 7. Like, I very much value people's time in the courses they take with us. I'm like, people have short vacations, they have short times to learn, and so like I think I want to take the most effective use of people's time. Like, what's the most I can teach in 5 days? And I feel like the most effective thing is stick time.
Totally.
If I was going to build
Zach, I don't think your classes you should be changing them. I think the way you design your class is great. I'm just saying for people who are looking at stuff is like there is a lot of value in that aspect of it. Yeah.
So
that's all I'm saying. Is like there's a lot of value there. There's a lot to be learned. It'll help your progression.
But as I think about it, if I was going to build a 7-day course, I probably would do a day of paddle boating, a day of ducking to start it off. Right? Like, if you start looking, like, I know ARDA has like those 10-day guide schools or like long guide schools. Yeah, I mean, if you have 10 days to go to a guide school, that's an amazing way to learn, because you start off with different boat types and work your way up. And so I think for the people that have a lot more time to learn, it's certainly valuable. And Barrett, like, this progression, it's like, I mean, man, I wish I was a kid kayaking. That'd be super cool. I learned how to paddle boat when I was 22.
The other part I'm going to say about the paddle boating too is I think you're a lot less likely to get hurt paddle boating, like running into rocks and stuff like that, than learning to row on stuff. And I think the river, you can, like, if I'm teaching someone to paddle boat and I'm in the boat, I can let them get beat up pretty good with the river without getting beat up, without them getting hurt or really putting people in exposure. Rowing, not so easy. I'm not going to put them out, like, I'll put people out in class 3, technical class 3, pretty early in a paddle boat so they can learn momentum, learn to check the momentum, slow down, not call long paddle strokes. I'm not going to do that in our boat until they're way farther down the line. So I feel like the paddle boat, you can really progress quickly in terms of and learning more about the current momentum type of scene quickly.
But really, like when you're learning to paddle boat, you're spending so much of your mental energy with the commands: forward paddle, back paddle, right? Like you don't have mastery of the boat. You're still just trying to figure that out for a while.
It doesn't take. I don't think that takes that long. And I think in some ways, like, I want to go forward. Well, just call forward. I want to go backwards. Call backwards. That's obvious. Oh, the forward back is easy. The turn's a little harder, yeah. And like, I think the paddle strokes are a little bit for some people. Some people struggle to learn the guide strokes and hold an angle with it. But also, I'll say the other part about it though is you have to read the water better if you're holding your angle with the paddle than you're holding the angle of an oar boat with one person in it. Way easier to hold your angle than a paddle boat with 4 paddlers in it.
Not when you're learning. When you're learning,
you got to pay way more attention.
When you're learning to row, it's really hard to hold an angle with oars. It's probably harder in a paddle boat, but people that are learning to row. That's why, like, after catching eddies, we work on ferrying for a long time, because people really struggle holding their angle ferrying.
Oh yeah, for ferrying for sure. I mean, just like even just going downstream too. Yeah.
Hey, you got called in a title elitist, by the way, Aaron. Did you see that?
We all did, Zach. It's not the first time.
I think he's talking to you. Rowing. I don't understand this comment. Paddleboating class 5. Rowing class 2. Paddleboating class 5.
I don't know. It's hard. Yeah.
I prefer channelized floors to tracking.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, but actually, it turns out if you have when he's talking about a flat floor, he's talking about a drop stitch, right?
Yes.
It turns out if you let air out of your drop stitch floor, they'll track really well. Like that's a good way to make flat floor. If you pump them up all the way, they don't track well. But if you like deflate them the right amount, they'll start tracking. But
Yeah, but if you deflate your floor, then it's way slower to let the water out of it, isn't it?
not inside the floor. It's still it's just like not all the way, but just some. There's like a deflated amount that helps those boats track better, turns out.
Oh, that's definitely true. They definitely track because then they ride more on the outside tubes.
Yeah. I think your point, Sean, about tracking second nature after years of rafting. Sorry, tracking is second nature after years of rafting. Tracking is again like really hard to teach. It's just really hard to say words and have people understand it. I think it's like after a while you're like, oh, that's tracking. You kind of get it. So I think it's something that like in the progression it's hard to put it somewhere. The offshore program mounted on our house. That's in the moment. There's no way it would have floated. Oh yeah, a lot of them break.
Well, I think those Carlisle ores, some of those Carlisle ores, once they get opened up or you bend them or whatever, they're heavy and they sink.
Yeah, well, next time we do classes, we'll work on giving people more feedback and more video review.
That's it. You know what, Zach? I'm going to say something.
Our goal is to do that.
Zach, I'm not part of your course, but I'm going to say this to Heidi. Like, I've coached a lot, done a lot of teaching, and I think a lot of people want a lot of feedback. And I think it's better to err on not enough feedback than too much feedback. If you have too much feedback, you get lost in your brain. There's too much to think about. And lobby is like you said, like you got to put the miles in, right, Zach?
Yeah. I mean, there's when we can. I find that when we're teaching, you can only talk so much, right? Like there's only so many. Like after a while, like people stop tuning you out, and so find that balance of like the right amount of information at the right time is something we work on a lot. But giving people games like, hey, go try to catch this eddy, go try to do this thing. And so like I find with a lot of students, some students eat that up. It's like, go catch this eddy, go between those rocks, go do this, go do that. And I see some students, you give them a couple challenges and they're just kind of like, I'm kind of tired today. Like, and they don't do them. And so like, sometimes we're like, okay, well, we'll stop doing those challenges. But like, I find that challenges and then feedback afterward are really effective. But yeah, find that balance between the right amount of information is really hard. I use paddleboarding to learn. My wife doesn't come anymore.
Wait, Aaron, the question is, so is she going with you when you're paddleboating and now that you're rowing, she doesn't want to go anymore? Or why doesn't she want to come anymore?
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear more about this. Please elaborate.
Once you get a good feel for paddleboarding and cruise your oar. I mean, I personally feel like, Justin, this is a great comment. I think paddleboating is so different than rowing. I think paddleboating is like, it's just have like saying words that come through to your crew and how your crew executes them is different than physically moving an oar. So in paddleboating, there's so much about crew preparation and the tone of your voice and practice. Like there's so much that goes into getting them to do the thing. It's not automatic. We're rowing, it's kind of automatic. What do you think, Aaron, Dougie?
Yeah, I agree.
Totally agree, Doug. Yeah, I mean, with Zach too. Doug, I don't just agree with you. I also agree with Zach.
Wait, Dougie agreed with me, and then Aaron agreed with Doug. So does that mean Aaron agrees with me?
Yes.
Sort of. I like the way Doug said it better.
Okay. Or should float. Yeah, that's for sure.
What was the rest
first
of that
part?
One?
Leave no trace. I don't know, some hippie stuff, whatever that means. Okay. This reminds me, Brody and I last summer were on the sweet boat on the Middle Fork, and there was a Carlisle oar shoved under the rock in the bottom of the river. So we eddied out and pulled somebody's trash out of the river. We still have the oar, and so that was a Carlisle oar that sank. Right below Doors Rock in the Middle Fork on the left, there was a Carlisle oar down there. But yeah, leave no trace comment for you, Dougie.
Thanks.
The first part of reading water, spot the hazards and spot out the hazards, identify A's and features. Yep. And it's interesting. Are they hazards or are they obstacles? I think there's a difference. Like, I think the first part of reading Wazard is spotting. I would differentiate between hazards and obstacles, because obstacles are like rocks that you're trying to avoid, but if you hit them, it's gonna be fine. Where there's hazards that are like trees or low-head dams or undercut rocks. So I think differentiating between things that are dangerous and things that are like is important. But identifying eddies and features. Yep. Super focused on everything. Just receive feedback on. The book called The Inner Game of Tennis highlights how oftentimes people perform poorly when they super focused on everything they've just received feedback on. To check it out.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. You see it. You can see people like too much. So.
Yeah, I mean that's a typical. We've learned how to teach rafting and rowing over many, many, many years of feedback from students, and a lot of the early feedback was like, I don't need somebody in my boat constantly telling me what to do. Like, we've learned that like just having somebody giving you constant feedback is really difficult, and we used to do that a long, long time ago.
I mean,
so
that's true with anything, right? You got to give people time to figure out and work on stuff, and your goal as an educator is to kind of direct and just help them down the path.
Yep. And I'll have to check that book out. Thanks for the suggestion. Yeah, I mean that's our whole. We have a teaching handbook, and every lesson that we have is like a 10 to 20 minute lesson, and there's maximum 3 points in each lesson, and like you have 3 learning objectives of each lesson, and so I like that a lot. Learning a lot of mistakes might be better to make those solo. Interesting. I think people are different. Like I think part of it too is I don't want to sit in a paddle boat with 5 people and get COVID, so I'd rather learn in an oar boat by myself. But that's because I'm introverted. If you're extroverted, you might want to be in an oar boat with 5 people learning. That doesn't sound fun to me. That's probably why I'm against it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. Makes sense. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think in general that's true for most people. I think you take a paddle captain and put them in a gear boat, they're gonna do a lot better than taking someone from a gear boat and put them in a paddle boat. Like there's a lot more nuance to paddle boating, I think, and there's a lot more variables involved.
So that's our last comment. This is just an earlier comment about how paddle boating has more nuance than rowing, I believe. That was his comment. But yeah, I don't know. I love rowing, obviously. We all love rowing on the show. So it's fun for us to talk about it. Well, I think we've beat this issue to death. Should we try to sum up what we've been talking about? Oh, no, I shouldn't have put that. I don't know if we should be talking about coronavirus policies on the show. I think that people get in trouble with that these days. Dougie and I can debate that later.
I'll just say this: having just had it, and I didn't want to get it.
Hold on. Do you really? Do we? No,
we're not. It's nice to be on the other side of it.
Into Joe Rogan.
I'm not embracing anything.
No,
I didn't want to get it. I didn't want my daughter to get it. We've had it, and now it's like,
Aaron, let's not cover coronavirus on this show.
I'm just saying, I'm feeling great now.
This is not medical advice. This is not, by the way, no financial advice, no medical advice.
I'm not medically anything. I'm just like,
You just gave it. None of this. I don't want to even go there. I don't even want to go there. Let's Captain. Oh, should we talk about captaining a paddle crew next? That'd be a good show for next week.
That sounds like a great idea.
I agree with Zach that. Ouch. It's probably true. I mean, Aaron's typically right.
Hey, why'd you skip that next comment, Zach? Come on.
This one?
Why'd you show this one?
Which one? Joe Rogan paddling? Oh, agreed, Aaron.
This one.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Oh.
Well, thank you everybody for going with us. I just want to iterate, like, I think just to sum up, like rowing progression, I think there's a lot of things you can teach, like people in a classroom setting. I think that a lot of it is about not getting hurt. I think that was a good reminder. Like, here's ways you can get hurt. I think going over some basic body mechanics and catching eddies and ferrying and a few other things are really helpful. But I think there's a long period of time then that just involves practice and coaching. And I like that word coaching a lot. Just trying things out and getting better. And that's how people improve in terms of like their own skills, reading water, and a bunch of other things. Does that sound kind of like a wrap up?
Yeah, it's about fundamentals. But get those good fundamentals first, and then build the experience, right?
Yeah.
And bring your channel locks.
Bring your channel locks. These things, they're the most adorable things. When these came in the mail, I was like, "Is this a joke?" They were way smaller than I thought they'd be. They're hilarious. Well, Aaron, I think we did it. Dougie, do you have anything to add?
No, that was a good show. Show. It's funny that we talked about progression for about 35 seconds of that the actual progression.
The last hour has been progression.
No, I know, but when you said, "Here's my basic progression I like to use," I think that part was about 35 seconds. The rest was whether or not you could teach something. But that was good. I mean, I think that
we had a discussion. I mean, I learned a lot. We had a discussion about progression. I think
I learned a lot too.
I mean, I think the things I'm going to take away are like, I think Aaron, you're right. Like talking about ways you can get hurt early is useful. Like maybe moving that up. Like, hey, first of all, here's how you can get hurt. Let's move that up a little bit earlier. I think the paddle boating nonsense. There's no takeaway from me there. I'm not gonna agree with that one. But I think Jared's point about using duckies, I like that a lot. And I think talking about reading water, I think people really want to learn how to read water, and so mixing that in there. And Heidi's feedback about becoming a better teacher, we'll work on that too. So I think we learned a lot from this week's Entitled and Naive Rafting Show.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you guys for joining. Please hit that like button, and of course subscribe and ring that bell so you get notified anytime Zach posts anything new on Gear Garage. And you guys, I want to say a shout out to all you guys who become members. It's really appreciated on so many levels. Like, it's nice financially so Zach can buy more cool stuff like those channel locks.
No, that new thing that I found, somebody told me about, the new fancy Leatherman thing.
We can see that next week on the show, hopefully. And I think we'll be back again next Monday, right? Next Friday.
Next Friday. Oops. Oh man, I was excited to
and card tricks. That's gonna be the post-show show. Hey Zach, I got a question for you.
Yeah. No, you can't do that.
Take care, guys. See you later.
Okay.